Welcome to Night Fiction, where the realms of imagination come alive after dark. I'm your guide through a labyrinth of captivating stories, thrilling narratives, and mysterious adventures. Join me under the starry digital sky as we explore the enchanting world of night fiction together. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let the journey into the night begin. Chapter 11. Case 10. Yaoyorozu Momo. Dear Diary, my student is going to ruin the economy. Or maybe he already has. Your face is looking quite red, Ochako-chan. Suyu said, studying a red-faced Ochako who walked in after visiting the nurse's booth. Were you crying? And no, this is something else. Ochako stuttered as she remembered her hands being held while the pain from her injuries eased out. I really thought you had him with that meteor rain. Toru aggressively flailed her hands around. Ochako only nodded her head mindlessly as she sat down on a chair next to Suyu with a dreamy look on her face. Currently, a set of viridian hair, his emerald, green eyes and his soft-spoken voice was the only thing occupied her thought. She unwarily let out a strange laugh as his compliments came back to her. Someone wakes Uraraka up. Kyoka asked as she poked an unresponsive Ochako. Yaomomo's match is starting. Midoriya-san. Izuku looked up from his book and found 1A's vice president in front of him with books in her hands. Yaoyorozu-san. Izuku smiled. I didn't know you visit the library. I've only seen Yanagi-san and Jirota-san. I've heard good things about this place, so I decided to give it a try. Momo coughed into her fist before gesturing to the chair in front of Izuku. Do you mind if I join you? I very much don't. Izuku smiled brightly. It's always nice to spend time with someone I like. Momo blushed profusely as she pulled out a book and covered her face with it. They then sat in the quiet library, with only the sound of pages flipping echoing through the empty room. Occasionally, Momo took quick peeks at Izuku, and every time she laid eyes on his tired yet undivided attentiveness on the book he was holding, Momo could feel her face getting hotter before she quickly turned back to her book, hiding her blush from Izuku. After an hour had passed, Izuku gently closed his book and stretched along with a yawn. Momo also gently put a bookmark on a page before closing it and asked Izuku. You seem tired, Midoriya-san. Momo asked with worry. Do you perhaps have trouble sleeping recently? I guess. Izuku hummed. Every time I try to sleep, I think about work. I read that readings help you feel sleepy, but I like to read, so I just ended up finishing the whole thing. You must be exhausted. Momo hastily reached her bag and pulled out a thermos. She elegantly poured a cup of tea and gave it to Izuku, who gratefully accepted it. Izuku immediately felt relaxed as he sipped the tea. Amazing as always, Yaoyorozu-san. Izuku praised, at which Momo showed a relief and giddy smile. It's lavender tea. Momo explained. Mother said it helps whenever she found trouble sleeping. Izuku chuckled at Momo's enthusiasm as she explained the tea's effect. Taking another sip, Izuku could feel himself nodding off as he mumbled with a smile. I wish I could marry someone who makes such a good tea. Momo was very glad that Izuku had fallen asleep, and that no one was around to witness the dolls she created in a panic. I've got to move on and be who I am. Izuku hummed to the song that was randomly stuck in his head with 2 hot dogs in his hands. Chio took over and told him to get something to eat. After running around to talk with a few pro heroes and trying out some activities, Izuku was currently returning to his booth with the lunch he bought. However, he heard a voice call out to him. He who snitched. A robotic tone called him. Be a decent, useful being for one and assist us with this task. With a groan, Izuku walked towards the robots. What's up? One of your kind is currently sweating through their eyes in the tunnel. The robot then pointed at the tunnel that led to the fighting ring. We are not equipped to deal with such a bothersome task. After no calculation, we agreed that a meddlesome being like you would be the right tool to solve this mess. That is, if you are useful at anything other than snitching? Ignoring the backhanded insults from the machine, Izuku nodded, showing that he accepted the task before thanking the robot and moving to where it pointed. Humans and their emotions. The robot scoffed. She lost, in mere minutes. At the reminder of her quick defeat, Momo tried to muffle her sob to no avail. Her motivation and self-confidence shattered the moment Midnight declared her defeat. The murmur she heard from the stands as she walked back felt like knives stabbing her. The moment she stepped into the dark, lonely tunnel, she broke down in tears. Realizing she was crying made it even worse. Heroes must be strong. They must always stand tall despite their losses. And here she was, weeping at her loss that was all her fault. Maybe she wasn't supposed to be. The train of thought stopped as Momo heard someone sitting down next to her. Quickly wiping her tears away, Momo looked up from her knees and found a familiar set of green hair sitting next to her chewing on a hot dog. Noticing her stares, the guy greeted her calmly with a smile. Yaoyorozu-san, right? He spoke. We met on your first field trip, Midoriya Izuku. He then handed her a hot dog. I bought an extra one. Can't finish 2 in a row, anyway. Although feeling uncomfortable, Momo still accepted the hot dog from him and began to eat it in silence. Occasionally, she stole some glances at Izuku, half expecting him to ask her to talk, but instead, she watched him attempting to stay awake from various times, accidentally nodding off. You should get some sleep, Midoriya-san, she mumbled. I'm fine. I should go back to my class's stand. I'm fine. It's just side effect from using my quirk. Izuku waved her concern off with a smile. While we're on that, I'm on the medic team. I can heal those bruises for you now, if you want me to. Or would it be more comfortable if we're alone in my booth? You shouldn't bother with me, Momo whispered, fighting off her shaky voice. It's better you save your energy for someone who actually put their efforts into their performances. But I am, though. Izuku tilted his confusingly, his smile never left as he continued. You fought with all you have out there, did you? I didn't, Momo yelled, cutting Izuku off. I didn't even move as Dark Shadow attacked me. I just stood there, cowering behind my shield, and got pushed out of the ring like an idiot. Tears were leaking out of her eyes again. They were all right. The other kids, my parents, my maids and butlers, my teachers. All of them. I'm not suitable to be a hero. I don't belong. Let's say everything you just said is true. Izuku cut her off, gaining her attention. Let's pretend you're not suitable to be a hero. Let's say whatever crap everyone told you was true. Izuku paused, letting his words sunk into Momo, who became even more crestfallen at his word. Do you still want to be a hero? Despite everything they said, do you? I'm not. Izuku raised a finger, stopping her. Do you want to be a hero? It's all I ever wanted to be. Momo nodded slowly. Then that's good enough, isn't it? Izuku smiled. You still believe it's the right thing for you despite what everyone else said. You're on recommendation. That means someone thinks you belong here, and I agree with them. Do you really think so? Momo asked with a shaky voice. I do. Izuku confidently nodded. But you were the one who worked through hell to get here, do you? Momo lifted her head up and showed a genuine smile through her teary face. I do. Momo nodded. Screw everyone else. They stood there and laughed. Ignoring the deafening cheering that happened outside, they stood there and laughed with each other. Having someone who believes in you is nice. That is one expensive tea set. Chio whistled as she studied the tea set that Izuku was using to brew some teas. It is, isn't it? Izuku smiled as he handed a cup of tea to Chio. Yaoyorozu-san gave this to me as a gift. A gift? What for? She said it was for being her friend. Izuku sipped his tea with a happy expression. This friendship tea set costs more than my yearly salary. Chio sipped her tea with an uncomfortable expression. How rich is she? She said she's the economy. It's scary that she said that so casually. 131 Chapter 12, Case 11. Toga Himiko Case File Number 11. Midoriya Himiko, formerly Toga Himiko. Dear Diary, I feel bad for anyone who mess with that family. Blood. Himiko crashed into a trash can and tumbled onto the floor along with its content. Not even attempting to stand up, Himiko weakly dug through mess she just made, looking for any edible food. Blood. She needed blood. Grabbing a dead mouse, Himiko dug her sharp teeth into it, sucking out the disgusting taste. Human blood. She needed human blood. Her vision became blurry as the voice inside her head kept getting louder and louder, overwhelming her sanity. The flicking streetlights became marks for her to keep moving forward. Soon enough, she saw someone. A human. A boy. Couldn't be older than herself. Despite whatever rational thought left in her, Himiko aimed straight at him. She tackled him down to the ground and dug her teeth into his neck. Just as she did the rat hours ago. Just as she did every animal she managed to sneak into her room, away from her parents. Her name was Toga Himiko, and she wasn't normal. Just as her parents have always told her. She was a monster. So, I'll see you tomorrow, Shuzenji-sensei. Izuku bowed goodbye to her with a sleepy expression. You look like you can barely walk. Chio sighed. Let me drive you home. A missing student is the last thing I need right now. It's fine, Izuku slowly chuckled. My mom is waiting for me and my sister outside. Do you want to talk to her? It's all right, dearie. Tell her I said hello. Chio smiled. You sure you can come to the second year's sport festival tomorrow? I'll be fine after a good sleep. He waved her off as he began to leave. As soon as Izuku came out of UA's gate, he was immediately tackled by a shorter figure with blonde hair. As the girl hugged her arm around Izuku's neck, he could feel his neck being softly bitten into. Instead of resisting, Izuku gently patted his assaulter's head and continued to move towards his mother, who giggled as she helped him into the car. Alright, what do you kids want for dinner? Inko asked as she drove. Sushi? Izuku. Katsudon. We ate katsudon last week, Izuku. Inko said, making Izuku pout. And you're already eating him, Himiko. Himiko just replied with a shameless grin. I'll be home in 30 minutes, Izuku. Inko's voice rang through the phone. Can you go to your friend's house in the meantime? Shiozaki said her family is out for dinner today. I'll just swing by the convenience store. Izuku scratched his head. Sorry for bothering you, Mom. Nonsense. Inko told him. Everyone forgets their keys at one point. I'll be home in a jiffy. Seeing his mother had ended the call, Izuku left for the convenience store. The night breeze made him shiver slightly as he hastened his steps, trying to get to the store to stay away from the cold. The street was oddly quiet, despite it being a Thursday's night. Izuku didn't see anyone on his way, and he didn't know if it made him more nervous or relief. A blonde girl with blood on her face and the flickering streetlights sure didn't help. Wait. Before Izuku could realize what he was seeing, he was tackled down onto the ground. Exhaustion combining with his head being slammed hardly into the ground. Izuku could only groan as he felt teeth bit into his neck, his blood being sucked out. As seconds went on, Izuku could feel the girl dug her teeth deeper into him, overwhelming his exhaustion with pain. And he felt droplets of tears on his cheek, and he was certain it wasn't his. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, he heard her whisper. Izuku noticed the girl tightened her hold on him as she sobbed. Izuku then put his hand on her head and whispered with the softest tone he could. You look malnourished and exhausted, Vampire-san. I'll use my quirk to help with the exhaustion, alright? Try not to suck too much of my blood. The girl didn't reply, but she held onto Izuku's arm tighter. Taking that as confirmation, Izuku used his quirk on her. My name is Midoriya Izuku, by the way. He smiled. Can I ask for yours? Himiko. She replied. Okay, Himiko-san. Is it okay for me to guess that your quirk is pushing you to do this for blood? As his guess, he could feel Himiko flinch. It's okay, Himiko-san. He patted her head. It's a normal quirk's requirement. Why you are even in this state is more concern. Normal. Himiko's whisper almost became inaudible. Normal. Despite the pain at the back of his neck, Izuku nodded. Just as normal as me having an unhealthy craving for energy drinks. My mom drinks coffee more than she does water. Everyone has different needs. It's normal. Does that mean I'm normal, too? It's normal for you to want blood, Himiko-san. Izuku chuckled. I still do not recommend attacking passerby. It's dangerous for both you and the party involved. But I suppose I'm your first meal. Himiko shakily nodded as tears continued to flow through her eyes. Then I suppose it's fine. Izuku nodded before pulling out a piece of paper. Here. Himiko took the piece of paper from him and studied it. What is this? Swing by this address later. A detective will help you if you want. You just gonna help me? Himiko's voice became shakier as she screamed. I just attacked you. Because you had to. Izuku shrugged. I wanna help. Also, you're going to have to carry me home cause I'm seeing 3 of you upside down and I don't think that's a good sign. Izuku's vision went black and once again, his head hit the cold floor. Himiko. Inko called out. From the couch, Himiko turned her attention away from caressing a sleeping Izuku's fluffy hair. She smiled at Inko and asked. What's up, Inko-san? I kind of have some news for you. Inko anxiously said. I'd rather you hear it from me than the news. Okay, here goes. Is it about my parents? Himiko giggled at Inko's dumbfounded expression. I guess it really is. What about them? We finally got the proof to put them behind bars. For good, this time. Inko sighed. Also, they said a lot of things about you, so I may or may not have decked them in their faces. You didn't have to do that. Himiko smiled. It's okay. I'm fine now. I know I didn't have to. Inko shrugged. I wanted to. But because of that, I am on 1-week suspension pay. So, like a vacation. The commissioner wrote it off as raising my hand a little too high. Inko grinned. By the way, we ran out of blood for your dinner. Do you want to go and get some? It's only for a night. I'll be fine. Nah. Inko went over behind the couch to poke Himiko's cheek. You can take blood directly from me. I don't mind. It may hurt you. It's alright. Hey. Inko laughed as she teasingly pinched Himiko's cheeks. You bite Izuku every day. If you don't bite me too, I'm going to feel left out. Himiko laughed together with Inko as she wrapped her behind, over Inko's shoulder to hug her. Her name was Midoriya Himiko. And like her brother and mom said, she is normal. No, she's more than that. She is happy. A.N. Himiko and Izuku met when they were still in middle school, by the way. Inko took her in as soon as she opened up about her living situation. The non-italic is the night of the first year's sport festival. Himiko goes to Ketsubutsu. She's a second year. And obviously, Inko lit Himiko's parents' asses on fire. Chapter 13. Case 12. Todoroki Ray Case File Number 12. Todoroki Ray. Dear Diary, this scandal is so large that it makes the denseness of my student feel bland. I suppose they all resemble one another. It's sweet, just a tad annoying. Real-time work event. Izuku repeated. Don't say like it's a video game. Chio corrected. It's a work experience. It's not like there's anything else for you to do. School is on break. The hero course is on their internship, might as well come with me. I guess. Izuku shrugged. Which hospital are we going? Fujitani Hospital. Chio revealed. Even if I don't have a license. Izuku pointed out. The licensing exam isn't until a couple of months, not even counting the residency training. You're my personal student. That means I recognize your skill as a nurse. Chio explained. Besides, you're mostly there to observe and help with small tasks. What's the worst that could happen? You're jinxing it. Izuku chuckled. It's real life. Chio gently whacked Izuku's back with her cane. Jinx isn't real. Detective. Rumi greeted loudly. Didn't expect to find you here. Inko turned around and smiled at the rabbit heroine. You as well, Usagiyama-chan. I thought you wouldn't be interested in taking these kinds of babysitting requests. Oh, hell no, this is my first. Rumi cackled. I read through the debrief and was curious of who'd be crazy enough to find her at Tartarus. I guess. Inko shrugged, before she showed a victorious grin. But if they sent someone as important as you, then my hunch is confirmed. Ho. Rumi smirked. This day keeps getting more interesting, I see. First, your brat made the dragon blushed like a high school girl. Tatsuma-chan? Oh, my. Inko showed a concerned look. I suppose it's good that Izuku was there to check on her fever before it got worse. Now it's you and this secret mission. Rumi ignored her and continued. Anything you can spill for little Olmi? I'd tell you anything you want. Usagiyama-chan, Inko teased before she walked into the room with a file. But then I wouldn't be able to talk with you over coffee later. Rumi only scoffed with a red face as she watched Inko disappear behind the enforced door of Tartarus. Give me the sterilizer. 1 second. Give me the bandages. On the way. Give me the operation knife. Coming up. Go to the storage room and get me the amputation kit, Midoriya. Coming up. As Izuku ran around to help Chio with her work, a group of doctors and nurses from the side stood in a circle and whispered to one another. Get me the application form. The head doctor whispered. The moment he graduates, we're hiring him. Doesn't he need a license first? To work here? A doctor asked. Good point. The head doctor snapped his finger in realization. We're sponsoring that. What about the residency training? A nurse raised her hand. He got taken in and is studying under the Shuzenji Chio, aka recovery girl at UA. The head doctor clapped his hands together to emphasize his point. If that's not quality residency training, I don't know what is. I just got here, so excuse me for being ignorant. A doctor chimed in. But why are we talking about hiring a student nurse? This is his first day at one of the busiest hospitals in the country. He's only medically trained for slightly over a month and yet, his efficiency is top tier. The head doctor explained with excitement. I thought Shuzenji-san brought him here to show him the cruelty of this industry. I didn't expect her to bring the most potential doctor we've ever had since her. Is he always like that? A nurse whispered to her coworker as they listened to the head doctor's rant. Only when he recognized real talent. The senior nurse shrugged. By the way, it's lunchtime. Who's in charge of room 159? It's Suzuki, but she called sick for work. Another nurse replied. Should I? I'll do it. Everyone turned to a smiling Izuku. Midoriya-kun. The head doctor said with a smile. How do you feel so far? Tired. But that's just how I am, doctor. Izuku chuckled. I overheard needing some help to get lunch to a patient? Yes, but I don't think you should do it. A nurse scratched her head. It's not like we don't trust you, it's just not the safest option for a student on observation. Seeing Izuku tilted his head in confusion, a nurse came in and explained. She's a patient in the mental ward, Midoriya-kun. Are you sure you still want to do it? Certain. Izuku nodded his head. I'm here to lessen your workload. If it's to help, I'll be glad to do anything you need. Although reluctantly, the head nurse gave her approval. Izuku bowed slightly to thank her before leaving for the ration storage. After he left, one of the nurses mumbled thought out loud. God, I wish I was 10 years younger. Hey, Kohai-kun. Najire looked over from behind Izuku. What you doing there? Just some. Izuku covered his mouth to yawn. Reports and homework. How can I help you today, Hado-senpai? I'm here to watch over you. Najire crossed her arm and showed an adorably serious smile. Recovery girl told me to make sure you don't faint on the hallway again. I didn't faint. Izuku pouted. I just fell on the floor and decided it was a good place to sleep. I don't understand why everyone made such a big deal out of it. UA's floor is comfy. Najire nodded in agreement. Once, I got back from a fight and I thought, walking is too tiresome. Let's just sleep on the floor and wake up in the morning. That way, I can get to class faster. Right? Izuku nodded with her. It's just sleeping. Our quirks affect our stamina. We need sleep. Why does everyone always default it as fainting? Ooh, speaking of our quirks. Najire showed an excited smile as she jumped up and down on the spot. I tried that thing you mentioned. It worked. It did? Izuku's eyes shone brightly. The direct contact blast thing worked. That just opened so many doors. You can temporarily paralyze your opponent with a precise shot at their nervous system or taking down an entire structure. Not to mention. That's what I thought, too. Najire excitedly nodded. Yup. Izuku pulled out a notebook and asked. Do you have anything to do tomorrow, Hado-senpai? Najire shook her head. Good. Izuku grinned. Because I'm not letting you sleep tonight. Najire nodded faster than she shook, hiding away the redness from her underclassmen. Let it go. Let it go. Izuku sung as he walked along the hallway with a tray of food in his hands. He then stopped at a room with a sign that said, Room 159 feet in the name, Todoroki Rei, under it. Izuku took a deep breath to prepare himself before he gently knocked on the door. Todoroki-san? Izuku asked, announcing his presence. I'm here to bring you your lunch. A few seconds later, a soft, gentle yet cold voice replied, Come in. Izuku opened the door and walked in before closing it. His eyes immediately laid on a white-haired woman sitting on a chair by the window. Her cold facial expression was highlighted by the sun as she looked dreamily outside the window. At the sound of the door closing, she turned around and immediately showed a surprised expression looking at Izuku. Aren't you looking a little too young to be a doctor, Doctor? Rei asked as she carefully studied Izuku. I'm not actually a doctor. Izuku chuckled as he gently set the tray on a table. I'm only here as a temporary assistant. I'm still a student, from UA High. What a coincidence. Rei's facial expression seemed more relaxed at the revelation. My son goes there as well. Are you a first-year student? Midoriya Izuku, he introduced. Nice to meet you, Todoroki-san. Call me Rei, please, Midoriya-kun. I'm more comfortable with it. She smiled as she gestured him to sit on the chair in front of her. Are you a first-year student? I am. Izuku nodded. 1C, General Education Department. Which class is your son in, Todo Rei-san? I know he's in the hero course. 1A, if my memory is correct. Rei smiled fondly as she talked yet Izuku could see a tinge of guilt. You must have been very at his performance at the sport festival, then. Izuku continued. His attempt at blowing past his own suspicion turned out to confirm it. Rei's kind expression turned to one of conflict, sadness and guilt. Tears began to drop as Rei tried to wipe them away while suppressing her sobs. Izuku immediately put a handkerchief in her hand. I am so sorry, Rei-san. Izuku apologized in a panic. I shouldn't have. It's not you, Midoriya-kun. Rei cut him off as she accepted the handkerchief. It's me. I can't, it's all my fault. Tuya. Shoto. My family Fuyumi is trying so hard and it's all my fault. Hey. Izuku gently held Rei's hand. It's okay, Rei-san. Just take your time, okay? Do you want me to leave the room? No, please. Rei shook her head. I need to talk with someone. Anyone. Then at your own pace. Okay. Izuku assured her. I'm right here. She nodded in silence as she held Izuku's hand. After taking some time to calm down, Rei took a deep breath and spoke. Engine Endeavor is hurting Shoto. Rei slightly winced as the light brightened up the darkness of the room. As predicted, she heard 3 uncomfortable groans from the couch. With a smile, Rei leaned over the couch from behind and gently spoke. I know it's Friday, but sleeping like that isn't good for you. Rei sighed as she watched the family, lying together in a cuddle pile on the floor, trying to squint their eyes shut to hide from the bright light. Mom. Fuyumi rubbed her eyes tiredly. What time is it? Just slightly past 6. Rei looked over at the clock hanging on the wall. Hard day at school? Yeah. Kids get hype on FR. Did you say 6? Fuyumi shot herself up from the comfiness she was lying in. Shoot. I haven't cooked dinner, and the laundry, the who. Calm down, honey. Rei smiled. Inko invited us out for dinner. She's heading there with Himiko-chan right now. Wash your face and change if you want. That goes for you, too, Izuku. With a pillow on his face, Izuku gave her a thumbs up. But you need to take a shower, Shoto. Rei giggled as her son groaned louder, refusing to sit up. You reek of sweat. Seeing that her youngest son wasn't responding, Rei moved over and kneeled next to him. She leaned over and whispered at a low volume so that only Shoto could hear her. You sure you want to smell badly next to Izuku? With a blink of an eye, Shoto shot up and bolted to the bathroom. At the sight, Rei giggled and looked over to Izuku. So, did you mind? She asked. Not really. She heard Izuku's reply being muffled under the pillow. It's just sweat. He's a hero student. That's normal. And the fact he ran to the bathroom because he didn't want you to think he smells bad? He probably thinks it's rude. I honestly don't mind. Izuku shrugged. By the way, Fuyumi-san looked kind of red when I gave her the sweater I bought. Do you think she likes it? I suppose I can see why Chiyo-san is having such a hard time at school. Rei sighed as she pinched Izuku's cheek in a kind manner. As he groaned, Rei only giggled fondly. She was home. I guess you heard all that? Izuku looked at his mentor. Instead of replying, Chiyo tilted her head, silently telling him to move to a more private location. They went back to Chiyo's office and sat down after Chiyo handed him a cup of tea. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. Chiyo explained. You took quite a while and wasn't replying to my texts, so I got worried. So you do care about me? Izuku grinned. Yeah. Chiyo rolled her eyes. As angry as I am, no, we can't take down the current number 2 hero. Not now, not in this current situation. I figured as much. Izuku nodded, looking perplexed. But we're not letting this slide, are we? No, we're not. Chiyo shook her head. But our priority here is Rei and Todoroki Shoto, I mean. We need to get them out of their current living situations without raising too many suspicions. Please tell me you have a plan. For Rei, I might. Chiyo nodded, but she didn't look very happy. But Shoto is difficult. Impossible, as of now. Baby steps, I guess. Izuku sipped his tea tiredly. What do you propose? Depends. You said your mother is a detective? Yeah. Can you ask her to come here tomorrow? Chiyo and Izuku are planning a prison break. Surely nothing will happen tomorrow. No. Second day of the internship week. Surely nothing bad will happen. Surely. Also, since Izuku didn't participate in the sport festival, Shoto didn't get his character development. Yet. Thus, he hasn't visited Rei. Chapter 14. Case 13. Iida Tenya Case File Number 13. Iida Tenya. Dear Diary, I think I overheard 1A's plan to bribe Nezu into transferring Izuku into the hero course. Their class, to be precise. One has to wonder how screwed UA would be if 1B and 1C find out. I can still work, Izuku pouted. That's the exact problem, idiot. Chiyo poked her cane at one of Izuku's pouted cheeks. You're here to observe. Not overworking yourself on the second day. It's just a few reports. It's a week worth of work you finished in a night. Chiyo twisted her cane deeper. If you still insist on not taking some rest, take a walk outside. Your mother and I need to talk, anyway. Speaking of, I wonder how it's going inside there. Izuku looked in the direction of where Rei's room was. They've been talking for a while now. They're fine. Chiyo commented. I heard they were giggling in there. As for you, get out of this hospital and don't return for at least another 2 hours. Fine. Izuku rolled his eyes as he took off his white coat and replaced it with an oversized t-shirt that said, Uniform, uniform. Ugh, that reduced 3 years off my lifespan. Chiyo groaned as she watched Izuku walk out of the room. She suddenly remembered something before she yelled. I missed your mother before she went into Rei's room. What was her name again? It's Inko. Izuku answered without looking back. Midoriya Inko. Closing the door to Chiyo's office as he leaves, Izuku missed Chiyo's mumbling in denial. Inko, she repeated. It can't be, can it? Midoriya-chan. Himiko turned around at the call of her family's name. She laid eyes on Tatami jogging towards her while waving with an excited smile. Tatami-chan. Himiko grinned. She greeted with a seductive voice. My, someone's excited to see me. Watching Tatami stutter for words with a face redder than Emi-sensei's, Himiko giggled as she gently patted Tatami's back. You've got to get used to this at one point. What's up? It's about the makeup license exam. Tatami poked her fingers together embarrassingly. I'm still kind of nervous. Do you want to go to the arcade with me and Yo? Before the big day? Here I thought it can be our private date, Himiko whispered into Tatami's ear. But I'll bite. If you promise another day for just the two of us, that is. Watching smoke start to come out of Tatami's ears by her shameless flirtation, Himiko had to wonder how her mother and brother do it without even taking a single hint. Heck, she could tell her whole class was having some sort of crushes on her just by winking at them. At least the lines she learned from the density of their head were extremely useful for her fighting tactics. I just want to feel this moment, Izuku hummed as he held onto the new bag of clothes he bought. Since there was nothing to do around his hospital, Izuku took the train to Hosu to enjoy the department stores the city has to offer. Izuku strolled around and picked up a couple of t-shirts for himself, Inko, Himiko, Rei and Chio. He considered getting t-shirts for Nato, Setsuna and the people at the church he usually volunteered at, but seeing that it would take a lot more time, he filed the task for another day. Heading towards the station to get back to Fujitani Hospital to resume his shift. Also, to hear more about the current situation with Rei. But before Izuku could step into the station, a loud explosion noise boomed behind him. Whipping his head around, Izuku found a weird yet familiar creature with an exposing brain getting kicked out of a train. Nomu. Izuku mumbled in disbelief, before another familiar, short old man in yellow dashing after it to chase it down. Torino-san? What is even? Kid. A hero called out to him with a panicked look. Evacuate down to the platform right now, it's dangerous out here. What is even going on? Izuku yelled back. The Nomus are attacking the city. The hero replied as he looked over to where the white Nomu had run off to. They're all over the city, it's total chaos out here. How many? It's not your problem to care about it. The hero yelled. Get down to the station right n. Before he could finish his sentence, the sound of someone shrieking along with loud engine noise caught both of their attention. Before the hero could snap out of it, a plastic bag was thrown at his face. Take care of that for me, please. Izuku was immediately gone. I'm too old to get grounded like this. Izuku pouted with crossed arms. It's not grounded. Chio casually and elegantly drank her tea. It's a detention. It's not better. Izuku commented. A shame, isn't it? Chio replied. With a defeated sigh, Izuku went over to his table and sat down. For you, detention means rest. Chio called out without looking at him. Do not grab anything that you can use to write. That goes for you and work tools, too, Hatsume. But I can write my ideas down? Mei looked up from her Lego set. Yes, but try not to come up with anything that violates the Geneva Convention. Also, help me watch over this workaholic nurse right here. Chio stood up and proceeded to leave the room. I'll be back in a jiffy, dearies. Try not to do anything while I'm gone. Like what? Both gremlins asked her. Don't worry about it. Chio closed the door, leaving the teens alone. Seeing that his teacher was serious with her warning, Izuku walked over and sat down on the floor next to Mei as she continued to assemble the Lego set without looking up. What are you building there, Hatsume-san? Izuku asked as he watched Mei. Why, I'm glad you asked, nurse. Mei smiled, her hands not stopping. This is how I want my baby to look like after I finished building her. It looks like a laser cannon. Izuku squinted his eyes on the Lego. Is this perhaps an upgrade from your previous laser handgun? It is, indeed. Mei laughed as she continued to assemble her project. Izuku smiled endearingly at Mei's enthusiasm and determination as she put the pieces together. Give me that 4x4 piece. Mei gave Izuku the brightest as he handed her the piece. You're the best help with baby making, nurse. Thank you. Izuku smiled. Speaking of, do you need any help with your baby? The actual one, I mean. Not necessary. Mei gave him a thumbs up. I'm almost finished. You can help with the next one. Anytime you need. Izuku grinned. I love making baby with you. Mei smiled wider at those words, quietly reminding herself to ask Recovery Girl why her cheeks always feel hot around the nurse. I'm going to kill you. Save him first. Stain calmly cut Tenya off as he pointed at Native. Think about others before yourself. Act for them instead of your own good. That's what being a hero is all about. Not blinded by vengeance, certainly not for self-satisfactory purposes. Tenya could feel himself freezing up as Stain licked his blood on the blade. You are not a true hero. That is why you are going to die. Right here, right now. Shut up. Iida yelled, eyes not blinking away from the blade that was about to pierce through him. It doesn't matter what you think. You took my brother's future. Vengeful until the last minute, huh? Stain glared down at him. It seems purging you here. Stain swung the blade, deflecting away a trash can lid that came flying at him. Not waiting a second, he jumped away from Tenya, dodging a wave of rubbish that was thrown at him. Immediately, Stain noticed another child ran in, grabbing Native's uninjured hand while glaring down at him. Would be better for my desired world. 60% of the hero killer's victim, including Ingenium, the tired-looking teenager glanced over at Tenya, were found in alleys that no one paid any attention to. My mother said serial killers are creatures of habit. Guess those late-night talks, education really is useful. This doesn't concern you, Midoriya. Tenya yelled at him. He's mine. Get away from him. Izuku ignored him and whispered to Native. The blood is clotted. Can you move? I can't. Native groaned as he struggled to stand up. It's some kind of paralysis. It's blood-related. Izuku mumbled. I can feel something weird with the cells. A healer? Stain spoke up. His eyes watched Izuku carefully. Your effort and bravery are respectable, child. Leave now, and you may live. Cool. Without a change in expression, Izuku nodded as he put Native's hand over his shoulder. In a blink, a knife cut through Izuku's cheek and stuck into the wall behind him. They do not have that privilege. False heroes don't deserve to live. People don't need privileges to not get murdered by a serial killer. Izuku glared back as he gently set Native down, seeing that there was no way to get out unharmed. I don't care about this crusade or ideas of yours. Just let me get two very injured people out of here. They are parasites that tainted the very idea of being a hero. Stain raised his voice. A true hero is someone who should risk everything for the sole purpose of saving others. That man over there stalled fights until cameras were on him. He used his fame to partake in sponsorship. It's for donation. Excuses. Stain hissed. And that one, he pointed the sword over at Tenya, abandoned his belief for vengeance. Someone clouded by so much hatred would only do more harm if left alive. He's the brother of someone you crippled. Izuku fought back while sneakily tapped on his phone from behind. And yes, while what he's doing is extremely stupid and reckless. What are you? Tenya tried to refute, but Izuku ignored him and continued. And absolutely suicidal, it makes sense. He's human. They're all human. If you're expecting everyone to be like All Might, that's on you, you delusional, noseless lunatic, and you. Izuku pointed his finger at Tenya, who flinched at being targeted. What the bloody hell were you thinking? You think what? You just going to stroll in here and defeat the hero killer that killed over 6 heroes and crippled your brother, Ingenium? Have you thought what might happen if you die here? I have to be the one who does it. Tenya argued. Ingenium has to be the one who defeats him, the one who kills him. You are too far gone, Stain groaned but was shut up by Izuku. Lips moving, still talking. Izuku pointed his finger at Stain before looking back at Tenya. You do not have to. You just want to, and that's different. You said Ingenium has to be the one who defeats him. Bullshit. The Ingenium I saw on TV never wore that face. Are you going to live up to that name, or you're going to change it to something worse? This is none of your business. Tenya snapped at him, his voice became shakier and shakier. Meddling in others' business is what being a hero all about. Izuku snapped back. That's why I'm going to get you and Native out of here. Even if I have to knock your dumbass out and drag you the hell out of this alley on 13th Street next to a damn taco restaurant. Stain wore a maniacal, satisfied grin as he listened to Izuku's words. So, you are ready to put down your life for these fakes? No, Izuku glared at him. I'm ready to save these two from you. Past. Stain's grin opened wider as he charged towards Izuku with the katana in his hand. And a glacial wall rose from the ground. Meeting number 3. Tenya pressed the button on the presentation slide. Subject: War. Mina raised her hand. Yes, Mina. Next to Tenya, Momo signaled him to voice his enquiry. Exactly with who this time? Mina asked. It said, war, on the presentation, not competition, like last 2 times. Because this isn't like our previous 2 meetings involved Togaiki-san and Shiozaki-san. Tenya slapped the board with his hand. It's the entirety of 1B and 1C. Don't tell me. Ochako abruptly stood up from her seats, eyes widening in realization. Yes. Momo lowered her head in shame. They have successfully invited Midoriya-kun over for a sleepover? Sons of bitches. Eiichiro hugged his head in desperation. I understand your feelings, Kirishima-kun, but please refrain from using such languages. Tenya reprimanded him. Unlike them, we are here to discuss like civilized human being. Fuck civilization. Katsuki slammed his hands on the table. We are killing those motherfuckers. Amidst the argument, Shoto raised his hands up. I don't mind. And everyone's glare was now on him. Like a switch had been turned, Tenya snapped. You have nepotism treatment, Icecone. Your family is close with his. Doesn't that apply to Bakugo as well? Shoto calmly pointed at Katsuki. He is too much of a tsundere bitch to do any like that. The fuck did you say, glasses? Katsuki yelled with a red face. Before the situation could get any worse, everyone turned deadly quiet as a familiar voice followed a knock on the dorm door. Is anyone home? Izuku asked from behind the door. I have some spare cookies. As the noise of the door handle being turned, Momo instantly threw a smoke bomb onto the ground while everyone else ran around to hide everything. Izuku coughed a little as he walked into a room full of smoke before setting the basket down and getting to open the windows. Terribly apologize, Midoriya-kun. Momo ran to Izuku and helped him open the windows. I was trying to replicate Midnight Sensei's sleeping gas. It's all good. Izuku chuckled. You must be needing some supplements after training. I have some cookies in that basket. There's just enough for everyone in there, but if you want, I'll bake some Midoriya-kun. From the smoke, Tenya walked out and approached Izuku while ignoring a death glare that Momo was giving him. What a pleasant surprise. To what do we owe this visit? Iida-san. Izuku greeted him with a smile. I'm just here to give out some cookies I baked. There's one for everyone. All of them are in bags with everyone's names. How's Tensai-san? Thank you for your concern. He's recovering well. Tenya nodded with a soft smile. The crutches still needed to go outside, but he doesn't need it to walk around the house anymore. That's great news, Iida-san. Izuku clapped his hands together before he pulled out 2 small see-through bags that were tied by a little red ribbon. Here, for you and him. Tenya accepted the bag with a red face. Thank you, Midoriya-kun. You're welcome. Izuku nodded. Waving 1A goodbye, Izuku put his green scarf back on and left the dorm. Before the door was closed, Izuku turned towards Tenya and winked. I put a little bit more effort and love into those, by the way. After Izuku had closed the door and oblivious to the carnage behind it, he pulled up the recipe and read it again. Lastly, remember to put effort and love into these gifts. They will 100% enjoy it when you give it to them. Izuku mumbled to himself with a smile. I hope they like it. As you can clearly see in this chapter, I will try my very best to skip fight scenes because I'm not good at them. Also, Midoriya Himiko, flirt because she thinks it's funny and it goes well with her fighting strategy. Midoriya Inko, tease because she likes it, but has no idea the effect it has on people. Midoriya Izuku, Rising by Breathing Chapter 15, Case 14, Todoroki Shoto. Case File Number 14. Todoroki Shoto, Dear Diary, my Pokemon knowledge has betrayed me. I have been lied to my entire life. Grass type is super effective against Ice type. What do you think about a bracelet that also acts as a GPS, Izuku? I think you should keep that away from me, Mom. Izuku replied to Inko's suggestion as he put a slice of apple into his mouth. Inko only hummed at the rejection as she continued to cut a few more slices. Then you better do something about that trouble magnet thing you have going on. Inko put a slice of apple into her mouth. Just you wait until Abara-chan hears about this. I don't have to wait for anything if no one tells her. Izuku stuck out his tongue. I mean, legally, we aren't allowed to say anything after that whole gag order. Better innocent victim than punished hero sometimes. Inko shrugged. I'm just pissed that it's Endeavor who is getting the credit. Like damn. What about Grand Torino who actually arrived on time and knocked out the hero killer? I don't think Torino-san would like the attention seeing how he's somewhat retired. Izuku pointed out. Speaking of, how's the case with Rei-san? It's going. Inko sighed. Intentionally or not, Rei was the one who injured Shoto-kun. Our only option here is for her to get her out the proper way. Which means a very intensive psych evaluation, a place of residence and someone who deems fit to look over her for a while after she gets out. Don't we need family's approval, too? Like, Endeavor's approval. That's easy. I won't bore you with the details. Inko waved Izuku's concern off. I'm more worried about the toll the whole process would take on Rei. As they were talking, Inko's phone rang. She took a quick look at it, sighed and stood up. I need to take this call. Inko walked towards the door. Be back in a sec, sweetie. You grounded me. Izuku complained. Exactly. Izuku once again stuck out his tongue at his mother who giggled before she closed the door. Flopping himself onto the bed, Izuku checked his phone and found messages from his friends. All of them shared the same concern as they heard of his involvement in Stain's case. As Izuku read through and replied to the messages, he heard knocks on his door. Come in. Izuku called out loudly. The door slid open, revealing a dual-colored hair teen with a cold expression walked in. Todoroki-san. Izuku's eyes widened. What a surprise, I wasn't expecting you. Iida is talking to his family. Shoto replied blankly. I did not want to intrude on him. I also owe you a thank you for assisting me in taking down Stain. I should be the one who thanked you. Izuku smiled as he gestured Shoto to sit down on the chair by his bed. Things would have turned bad hadn't you arrived. Shoto only replied with a nod. The two sat in silence, both not knowing what to say to the other. After a moment of awkward silence, Izuku finally broke it. Todoroki-san, is it okay if I ask about your quirk? Shoto nodded. It's half cold half hot, right? Izuku smiled. Can you control the temperature, density of your ice? I can control how fragile the ice is, the force, the amount and how big the area it affects. That's so cool. Izuku nodded his head. But if I remember correctly, half of you was covered in ice if you overused it, correct? Izuku then looked straight into Shoto's heterochromia eyes and with his soft tone and sincerity, Izuku asked. Why don't you use your fire? Detective Midoriya. Inko turned towards the voice that called out to her. A woman in white hair elegantly walked towards her direction with a kind smile on her face that contrasted to her sharp eyes. Rei-chan. Inko smiled. What brings you out of the castle? I heard about what happened with Midoriya-kun, so I wanted to check up on him. Rei explained. He also said that I should exercise more often, so. I'm going back to his room now. Inko pointed towards the direction of Izuku's room and took the spot by Rei's side. Busy day at work? Rei asked. Just updating some information for the heroes' agencies. Inko sighed. The Hosu attack left a lot of things to clean up after. Not counting the cult of followers who heard Stain's word on that viral clip. The speech he made after he rescued Midoriya-kun from that thing, correct? Rei wondered as she recalled the footage of Stain saving Izuku from a Nomu with wings. The one about true hero and whatnot. The reason it got viral was because of the amount of people who agrees with it. Inko commented. The commission put a lot of pressure on the police department to take it down. Permanently. How's it going, then? Honestly, best we could do is slow down the pace of it being spread. Inko admitted. Thankfully, the HPSC has no control over how the police work, so I can just direct them to our voicemail. I do hope you've been having a better day than mine? Fuyumi told me Shoto was mostly unharmed aside from a few scratches he received. Rei nodded. I wanted to go and talk to him, but. Hey, it's okay, honey. Inko gently patted Rei's back as the woman wore a crestfallen expression. Just take it easy, alright. I'm sure it's hard for both of you to ta. Izuku's voice came from the hospital room's door. Why don't you use your fire? The adult froze up. Quote. 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 The four students blinked at the sight of Chio, who wore a deadpanned expression that turned more and more tired as the seconds dragged on. The eerie silence went on for another 5 minutes before Chio finally let out the most tiring sigh Izuku ever heard from her. Just for the sake of my curiosity, what are you guys doing here at this hour? After hours club activity? Izuku offered. At midnight? Chio hummed. And is that a pentacle drawn on my office's floor? I'll clean it up when we're finished. Izuku shrugged. Finished doing what, exactly? We are attempting to summon a demonic being that shall serve as a way for us to covertly communicate with one another, be it directly or indirectly. Reiko explained. The dark stars align, converging at the center, creating a round table for the dark nights that serves it. Fumikage whispered mysteriously. What a mad banquet of darkness this evening turned out to be. Shitai grinned. Chio looked through the three other students before looking back at her assistant, silently begging for a proper explanation. Yanagi-san found a forum with a ritual on how to communicate telepathically. Izuku explained. She said it is for Emily to communicate more easily with us. My inner sibling wishes to converse more freely with my classmates and your assistant, recovery girl. Reiko added in. She is under the impression that her thoughts are not well transferred over by me. Chio nodded and looked back over at Izuku. Shouldn't you ask your girlfriend from the support department about that first before starting a cult meeting in my office? His what? Reiko shot up from her seating position, as did Fumikage, who did it in a quieter manner but no less shocked. As that happened, Shitai was silently brainstorming possible pranks he could pull on the support course. I did text Hatsume-san about that. Izuku replied, not noticing three heads snapping at his answer. She said she's currently focusing on another project so that would take quite a while. We're not dating, by the way. I'm sure she has better options than a sleepless nurse. Try Dents, but that girl isn't any wiser, anyway. Chio shrugged before she grinned at the other three. Doors wide open for you kids, it seems. As Shitai and Fumikage were busy hiding in the darkest corner of the room at that comment, Reiko was very not subtly breathed out a sigh of relief. The ashen-haired girl turned towards Izuku and with her indifferent expression, announced. It appears fate agrees with us and so does your mentor, my beloved. Would you now agree to take our hands in marriage? As in walk you down the aisle when you get married. Gladly. Izuku showed a beaming smile. Though I really think your father should do it. This is the 5th time you've asked me. Reiko nodded before turning towards Chiyo while pointing at Izuku. You are certain this is incurable? If it is, I would have done it long ago. Chiyo sighed. Even with Shoto glaring at him with utmost fury, Izuku's smile did not drop slightly. Your fire is a natural solution to your ice and that goes in the opposite way as well. The drawback your right side has can be easily fixed with your fi. I know what I am capable of. Shoto hissed, cutting Izuku off. It's none of your business. Of course, it's your quirk. Izuku continued. But clearly, by using only your right side, you are operating at half of your power. That affects your performance and proves to be dangerous for yourself, is it not? I don't care. Shoto's glare hardened. I will become a hero using only my mother's ice, not his fire. Whose ice and fire? What? Caught off guard, Shoto blinked. What are your parents' quirks, Todoroki-san? Frost and Hellflame. And what is your quirk? Half cold, half hot. That means the fire and ice that come out of you are yours, then. You don't understand. Shoto's glare hardened once again. My father. And exactly how many people you are going to put in danger because you are half-assing out there, Todoroki-san? This time, Izuku matched his own glare with Shoto. You expect to go out there and fight with half of what you have because of your father? Is that why you want to be a hero? Out of spite? Before Shoto could find an answer to that question, the door to Izuku's room was pushed open. The teenagers turned and found Rei standing at the door. Despite tears rolling down her eyes, Rei did not show any other expression other than attentiveness. Her serious eyes were locked with Shoto's shock. I'll drop this right now if you say so, but I'm willing to bet that's not who you are. Izuku turned back and continued to push on. So, I'm going to ask again. Why do you want to be a hero? Because, Shoto mumbled, not looking away from his mother, because I. Rough day. Rei asked, poking Shoto who laid his face on the dining table. Work study. More like child labor. Not even the fun ones. Just dangerous and tiring. Shoto groaned. What type of child labors do you categorize at fun? Fuyumi's sweat dropped as she set the table. Why did you even pick him for your work study? Natsuo asked incredulously. You of all people should know how that man is. I've ignored half of myself for a long time, Natsuo. Shoto looked up. I'm just doing all I can to catch up. Enji's work attitude is admirable. Rei nodded as she pat Shoto's head. Despite his dogshit personality and obsession, that is. Language, Mom. Fuyumi begged, much to Rei's amusement. How about a lighter topic, then? Natsuo grinned. How's that crush on that Midoriya kid going? Contrary to Natsuo's expectation, Shoto once again slammed his face onto the table as Rei giggled even louder. That bad, huh? Natsuo chuckled as he drank the water. He couldn't even form a proper sentence when Izuku cupped his cheeks to check for injuries. Fuyumi smugly grinned as she recalled the memory from their last interaction. That's rich, coming from you. Natsuo gave his sister a side-eye. Didn't you almost faint when the kid put his forehead on yours? Immediately after the sass, Natsuo jumped out of his chair and ran with Fuyumi hot in pursuit with a fork. Rei only shouted, "Be careful," before she returned to stroking Shoto's head. They stayed in the comfortable silence for a few minutes before Shoto turned towards her. Mom, do you still remember what I said? That day in the hospital? Rei nodded with a soft smile in response. Am I still doing it right? Shoto asked with worry. Are you happy now? We are soon getting chased out of here. Inko sighed as she covered her ears from the loud fire alarm's noise. Izuku only giggled as he sat by his mother outside of the room. Quirk accident, Mom. Izuku grinned. You taught me to use that excuse. I'm regretting it now. Inko groaned. I'm the one who has to write this report later. Inko peeked into the room to Rei and Shoto crying as they hugged each other. With a smile, she gently closed the door. You did good, honey. Inko pinched Izuku's cheek. I'm proud of you. Proud enough for you to forgive me for this? Oh, hell no, Inko grinned. No katsuden this weekend. Doctor's advice. Izuku's facial expression turned into one of despair while Inko laughed out loud. I've got you, Natsuo and Fuyumi right here with me. Rei hugged Shoto. I'm not just happy, I'm full. Shoto hugged her back. A rare smile appeared on his face. Chapter 16. Side Story 1. Family Dinner, Dear Diary, it's finally happening. What I fear, has come to be. My sister's family found out about Setsuna's crush, aka my assistant, aka the rock that is Midoriya Izuku. Lord helps me. Izuku curiously turned towards Chiyo, who was letting out an uncharacteristic groan as she tossed her phone on the table. Bad news? Izuku asked as he stood up and headed towards the teapot. That depends. Chiyo groaned. Got any plans tonight? Apart from feeding my axolotl and reading some books, no, Izuku tilted his head thinking. I see. Chiyo dryly confirmed. My sister, I don't know if I should still call her that after this found out that I have an assistant. She wants me to invite him to our weekly family's dinner. Who is H.O., that's me. Yeah, that makes sense. Izuku hit his fist into his palm in realization after handing Chiyo the cup of tea. This is the last day of your internship, Chiyo shrugged. I suppose this could be a celebratory dinner. Crazy week you've had. I need to check with my mom first, but I think it should be okay. Izuku smiled as he pulled out his phone. Do I need to go home and change before coming? That's too much traveling for you. I'll drive you there. Chiyo told him. We're leaving after 5. Go rest up. You used too much of your quirk on Iida. How's that going, anyway? The fracture parts of the spine have been healed up. Izuku reported. The nerves still aren't responding as well as before, though. That's something he has to work on in physical therapy. That's all I can do, unfortunately. Dear, you did all that for him. Chiyo softly assured him. Tensai would have spent his life in a wheelchair if it weren't for you. But he still wouldn't be able to return as Ingenium. Izuku muttered. We can't save everyone, Midoriya. Chiyo poked her cane at the dejected Izuku. But we're trying our best for those within arm's reach, and that's important. Chiyo returned to her paperwork after she acknowledged the nod came from Izuku. I could still save more. A woman in a dark costume shakily stood up. Skyward, I could still go in, Chiyo. She limped towards the burning building in front of her. There are still people in there. I need to go in. Nana. Chiyo shouted, making Nana flinch. Look at yourself. You can't even walk right. Stay here and let Torino and Yagi handle the rest. Nana's gaze followed the figure of Torino flying around the building before dashing in through a window, and the silhouette of her student running through the burning flame with civilians on his back finally made Nana fall to the ground. Immediately, Chiyo ran over and put her lips on Nana's burned hand. Chiyo let go early to carefully not draining off her friend's energy. As Chiyo carefully wrapped Nana's burns, the heroine watched the fire of the burning building being slowly put out. The screaming slowly drained out as more and more people were taken out of the building. When was the last time you slept? Scratch that, when was the last time you even came home? Chiyo followed Nana's gaze as she spoke. You look like you're about to crumble. That's rich coming from you, Chiyo. Nana chuckled, though Chiyo couldn't find any humor in that. I work duo jobs that are understaffed while having no one waiting at my apartment. Chiyo shot back. You have kids and a husband at home. I've been hearing rumors. Nana answered. People lost control of their quirk, or quirks. I've seen some cases like that at the hospital. Chiyo nodded as she tried to fight back her hastened heartbeats. Kids came in, apparently losing their newfound quirks after some counseling. Chiyo, if that's true, it means you need to go home and have a proper rest with your family. Chiyo immediately cut Nana off. You can't win any battle looking like you're about to faint from a push. Nana only stayed quiet as she snuggled into Chiyo's embrace. Although surprised by the sudden action, Chiyo wrapped her hands around Nana, bringing her into a hug. Nana held tight onto Chiyo, trying to think of anything but the horrible premonition that she felt was coming. Chiyo held tight onto Nana, hanging onto something that wasn't hers. Neither said anything through the whole ordeal. That's probably your great aunt. Hanbin turned at the sound of the doorbell. Setsuna, honey, could you please go and get the door? Ait, mom. Setsuna put down her phone before letting out a long stretch. The internship with Majestic, as entertaining and helpful as it was tiring. Despite his zero knowledge on romance, the man was as good a teacher as he is a hero. Though that also meant he worked her to the bones to improve her quirk. With a yawn, Setsuna skipped towards the door to open it. Granny Kai. Setsuna greeted her great aunt with a smile. Setsuna. Chiyo smiled at the sight of her excited grandniece. Mind if we come in? We, Setsuna repeated confusingly. Shuzenji-sensei, are you sure this is good enough? Setsuna looked behind Chiyo and found a familiar set of verdant hair approaching with a big basket in his hand. I still think it isn't good enough. We invited you over for dinner, Chiyo emphasized. I already said you don't have to buy anything. I'm interrupting your family's dinner. Izuku pouted. Buying a gift is the least I can, Tokage-san. Setsuna snapped out of her shock as she felt her face getting hotter. Setsuna quickly coughed into her hand before putting on a wide smile. Midoriya. I didn't know you were coming. It's great to see you, Tokage-san. Izuku smiled as he gave Setsuna the basket. Here, for your parents. Ah, you didn't have tea dinosaur crackers. Setsuna cheerfully exclaimed before she detached her hands and floated them along with the basket inside. Come on in. When did you even have the time to buy those? Chio turned to Izuku as they walked inside. When you were putting gas in your car. That was 5 minutes. I ran really fast. Izuku shrugged as he took off his shoes and his coat. Chio did not give any more comments as she walked towards the living room with Izuku behind her. Upon entering the living room, they found Setsuna enjoying the gift as she put some crackers into her mouth and happily chewed on them. Sitting on the love seat, an elderly woman with long, green hair that was turning silver waving at them. Chio. The lady greeted Chio with a smile before turning to Izuku. This must be your lovely assistant. I'm Tokage Nankina. Nice to meet you, young man. I'm Midoriya Izuku. Nice to meet you, ma'am. Izuku bowed. What a humble young man. Nankina giggled. I hope my sister isn't being too hard on you. Nice to see you too, sister dear. Chio rolled her eyes. Where's Isha and Hanbin? They're setting up the table. Chio followed her sister's eyes towards the kitchen. With a nod, Chio slowly walked towards the kitchen while Izuku took a seat next to Setsuna, who was not so subtly scooching closer to him. How was your internship, Tokage-san? Izuku asked. Shuzenji-san told me you went with Majestic. I did. Setsuna proudly confirmed. He taught me some very useful tricks with my quirk. Really? Can I see? Izuku excitedly vibrated in his seat from anticipation. Setsuna grinned. Immediately, Izuku could feel his waist being grabbed by Setsuna. He giggled from the sudden contact. When did you get your hands there? Some cool distraction tactics I learned. It's really USEF. Setsuna stopped as she felt her hands on Izuku's hard abs. Tokage-san? Izuku tilted his head. Why yeah. It's just a useful sneak attack Majestic taught me. How was your week? Setsuna laughed a little too loudly as she retracted her hands and looked away. A little busier than usual. But it was really mind-opening. Izuku didn't pay any attention to Setsuna's weird reaction as he reached his bag. I actually got a gift for you. Izuku then pulled out a yellow t-shirt with a picture of a triceratops with a sunglasses and police hat. The word, Triceratops, was written under the dinosaur. Setsuna grabbed the shirt with the brightest look in her eyes as she studied it. I love it. Setsuna exclaimed, looking at Izuku. This is going to be my third favorite shirt. I'm glad you like it, then. Izuku smiled before standing up. I'm going to see if Shuzenji-sensei needs any help. After Izuku left the living room, Nankina, who had been staying quiet throughout the whole conversation, turned towards her granddaughter with a mischievous grin on her face. That was cute. I don't know what you're talking about. Setsuna looked away. Of course. Nankina nodded. I guess I was just mistaking that cute moment with you caressing his abs while drooling like a hungry T-Rex. Setsuna immediately buried her face into a pillow, not looking at her grandma. Stupid hot, sexy, buff nurse. She pouted angrily with a blush on her face as she remembered the sensation. Hey, it's my favorite honey badger. Nana strode in with 2 bags of snacks and a cheerful smile. How are you, Nezu? Skyward. Nezu replied without a change in expression nor looking up from his book. As energetic as ever, I see. Nana chuckled as she set a bag next to Nezu before sitting down opposite him. What's that book you've got there? Instead of replying, Nezu slightly tilted the book over so Nana could read the title. The heroine took a quick glance and visibly gagged as she read the title. I thought you said you only read books that are worth your time? Only way to discern a bad book is to read some. Nezu replied unamusingly. You human has an interesting way of disagreeing with everything that had or will happen. Every single conversation, action could very well turn into an all-out war. You aren't wrong there. Nana nodded. Chio and Sora had a fight just now over who's picking up my kids for the day. I assume Recovery Girl has come out victorious? Nezu wondered, uninterested. Her rock-paper-scissor rule is always a sure win for her. Nana shrugged. Maybe next time you should pick the kids up. My daughter would love to meet you again. That's a kind offer, Skyward. For the first time since Nana came in, Nezu showed a small smile. But I don't believe my presence would be helpful for a child's development. Unless you want them to turn out ruthless and heartless like I am, that is. You sit on the idea, okay. Nana stood up and headed for the door. Before Nezu could return to reading in peace, Nana's voice once again made him look up from his book. That heartless thing is bullshit, by the way. Ruthless, maybe, but not heartless. And what makes you come to that conclusion? I have a good feeling when I first met you. Nana grinned. I'm sure you're going to be a great teacher one day. Nezu silently sipped on his tea with a smile on his lips after Nana closed the door. You want something? Chiyo blankly stated. What makes you think so? Nankina cluelessly asked. I practically raised you, Nankina. Chiyo rolled her eyes. What do you want? Don't be such a killjoy. Nankina giggled as her eyes darted towards the living room. I'm just feeling nostalgic. Chiyo silently followed her sister's eyes toward the living room. There they saw Setsuna and Izuku sitting together on the love seat, squeezing against each other as they giggled at something on Setsuna's phone, completely unaware of Setsuna's parents recording the scene as they themselves hugged each other. They remind me of you from back then, you know. Nankina's observation pierced Chiyo's ears like a sharp, rusty knife. You, and Shimura-san. It wasn't like that. Chiyo mumbled. Almost half a century passed, and I still don't believe that. Nankina stuck out her tongue before she finally turned to face her sister with a serious look. Chiyo, I know you still. Don't. Chiyo cut her off. Just. Don't, not today. Okay, sorry. Nankina sighed. I just hope Setsuna won't become like you. Not once since the conversation started until it ended did Chiyo look away from her grandniece. A smile slowly crept onto her lips as she watched Izuku tied Setsuna's hair into braids. I do hope so, too, she mumbled. Chapter 17, Case 15, Kodai Yui. Case File Number 15. Kodai Yui, Dear Diary. It is hard to understand Kodai due to her being a person few or any words. But holy hell, the look she gave that dense being. I didn't believe the phrase, seeing one's emotion through their eyes, but I also don't understand what is going on inside his head that makes him not realizing what is going on. Joy, happiness, ecstatic, excited, relief, enjoyment were the direct opposites of what Yui was feeling as she held onto her side while limping towards the nurse's office. She silently cursed at Kamakiri for the sharp edges he put on one of the pipes that ran through her. It didn't help that her perpetually neutral expression threw a lot of people off from talking to her, aside from Shota and Kendo. But even they have their own friend groups. Groups that she couldn't or rarely join because the canteen was too noisy for her sensitive ears. It also wasn't easy to make friends, being socially awkward and selectively mute. Yui winced as she felt another sharp pain. The nurse's office was at the end of this hallway, but every step she took just made the room feel further and further away. It only took a few more steps until Yui realized she couldn't stand straight anymore as her feet entangled with each other, causing her to lose balance. Yui let out a strained yelp as her face came closer to the floor. What in tarnation? Chiyo let out a scream as she walked into her office and laid her eyes on the horrid sight in front of her. At her scream, her assistant turned around. Chiyo-sensei. Good afternoon, he smiled. How's the meeting? Not as scary as whatever is going on here, she yelled. Why are you covered in mushrooms? I fell asleep on a bench. Izuku shrugged. That explains so much yet so little. Chiyo finally relaxed a little as she cautiously made her way to her table. I assume that's why Kanoko is on the bed. Just exhaustion from overused. Izuku explained as he plucked off a mushroom from his thumb. I would have used my quirk on her, but I think it's best that she rests naturally instead. I see. Chiyo nodded. How long until the whole, goes away? She said it only lasts for a couple of hours. I should be fine before school closes. Izuku stood up and headed towards the door. Might as well get some uses out of the time remaining. You're going to prank the people at the staff room, aren't you? Chiyo squinted her eyes suspiciously. Izuku put a finger on his grinning lips before closing the door. The fall Yui was expecting never came as she felt an arm holding her by her waist before slowly positioning her into a seating position against the wall. Yui finally laid eyes on a set of green hair as he carefully studied her injuries. Can you hear me talking? He asked. Yui nodded. That's good. He smiled warmly. Can you feel any pain at your wound? Yui nodded, wincing a little as the pain kicked in again. My name is Midoriya Izuku. I can use my quirk and ease the pain. It requires direct contact, so I do need to hold your hand. I can go and get Shuzenji-sensei if you're uncomfortable with the idea. Yui raised her eyebrows. I breached that rule so much recovery girl already gave me permission to use my quirk on school ground. Izuku explained. So no problem on my part. Although uncomfortable with direct contact from another person, Yui decided to trust the nurse in front of her. With a confirmation nod from her, Izuku gently grabbed Yui's hand and focused his quirk on fixing up her wound. Slowly, the uncomfortableness Yui felt dissipated as the pain was replaced with the feeling of energization. Suddenly, the nurse released her hand and threw his back onto the wall next to her. Yui asked in concern at the sight of the nurse panting. I'm fine. Izuku chuckled tiredly. It's just a drawback. Speaking of, can I ask about your quirk? Yui nodded as she showed her palm. Hey, touch-based quirk gang. Izuku grinned as he mimicked the action. Are yours contact activated like mine? Yui shook her head as she wiggled her fingers. Ah, 5 fingers. Izuku nodded in understanding. What does it do? Yui took out her phone and expanded it to the size of a laptop. Yui felt a sense of smug as she put her fingers on both hands together and shrunk the phone back to its original size as Izuku watched in amazement with admiration in his eyes. With his eyes still closing, Izuku let out a long stretch while yawning. Tiredly rubbing his eyes, Izuku sat up from the hospital bed. At the familiar voice, Izuku turned his eyes to his left and found Yui sitting there with her ever-expressive face and a pack of tomatoes. Kodai-san. Izuku smiled. Is the canteen loud today? To his surprise, Yui shook her head and instead, she just pointed at Izuku before pointing back at the bed behind her. Stay guard. Izuku tilted his head. On what? At that question, the drape was pulled open, revealing an ashen-haired girl with a tiredness that could match Izuku. Yui is here on a mission to prevent myself from being closer to you, my beloved. Reiko explained. Despite my insistence on just wanting to sleep on the same bed with you, Yui came with me to make sure I did not perform any unsafe for work actions. Unsafe for work, Izuku repeated. What do you mean? It means, a tomato was shoved into Reiko's mouth before she could say anything further. Reiko only shrugged in response before excusing herself to go to the bathroom. Yui asked. Just some late-night talk with a friend from overseas. Izuku explained before letting out another yawn. I was sleeping. I woke up because, Izuku defended himself before realizing. I actually woke up because I heard your voice. Did you say something when I was asleep? Yeah, that was a dumb question. Izuku scratched his head. Wanna have lunch together? Here's the doctor's note. Izuku handed Yui a piece of paper. Please come here immediately if you feel anything weird. Yui nodded as she accepted the piece of paper. She then slightly bowed before leaving the office, heading back to the practice site. On the way back, Yui blushed at the memory of her hand being held gently by Izuku. It did not help that the nurse's plain yet kind face was exactly her type. Even better since he was a respectful and gentle person. He didn't write off her silent demeanor as cold or rude. Instead, he communicated with her normally. Wait, he communicated with her normally. She didn't say a word and he talked with her just as normally as anyone else. The realization hit Yui hard as she tried to hasten her steps, hoping no one would see her face being as red as a tomato. Ensuring that Reiko was now asleep, Yui closed the drape to her bed and returned to just watching Izuku sleep. She slowly leaned down, next to his ears. I love you, she whispered at the smallest, softest tone. She quickly sat straight back up as she noticed Izuku slightly twitched. She quietly swore to herself that the next time she says those 3 words, he would be awake and listen. Preferably without Emily listening in on them. As much as I want to say no, Chio sighed tiredly. At the end of the day, it's his decision. I understand. Toshinori nodded. Then I shall do it. Chio gripped her cane tightly. I will tell young Midoriya about One for All. Chapter 18. Case 16. Nezu, you all thought this would be an All Mights chapter, huh? Case file number 16. Nezu, dear diary, there's a phrase that I really like. You can't make the same mistake twice. The second time you make it, it's not a mistake, it's a choice. 10 years ago, the head of Hero Public Safety Commission made a mistake, threatening the wrong person, which he paid dearly for it. If they're really making the same choice again, I'm afraid they deserve it this time. I understand you wish to talk to Midoriya-kun about One for All, Yagi-kun. With his usual indifferent smile, Nezu looked down at the number 1 hero, who was kneeling on the floor. But I do not believe stalking the young man is the right way to go. Even Kayama-kun was weirded out by your actions. Behind him, Chio and Sorahiko rubbing their own faces tiredly as they watched their old student being chewed out. The heroic foundation teacher only managed to nod as Nezu continued to speak. Now, instead of stalking him before classes start, ongoing, and end, have you tried approaching him during his working hours with Shuzenji-san? Nezu asked. I believe she is more than understanding to give you both some privacy. I did try that. Toshinori dejectedly answered. But young Midoriya's friends are always with him. It's a different student every day. This I can confirm. Chio nodded, before she drove the sharp point of her cane onto Toshinori's back. But have some decorum, would you? That's my student you're stalking there. Please stop calling it stalking, Toshinori pleaded. It's just difficult to ask the young man to speak privately with someone he doesn't know. You're the #1 hero, you blonde oaf. Sorahiko kicked him on his back. Your face is everywhere. It's infuriating. Now, Shuzenji-san, Torino-san. I believe Yagi-kun has learned his lesson. Nezu cackled as he was satisfied with the lecture. Let me have a talk with the young man. It's a good opportunity to get to know the possible holder of One for All, after all. Nezu-sensei, I will not reveal One for All. Nezu addressed the issue before it was even brought up. I believe that's fit for the current holder. I'll just have a quick chat with the young man before setting up a meeting for you, Yagi-kun. Does that sound good? Better than this one following him around, Sorahiko grunted. I agree with the goblin. Chio sighed. Toshinori nodded. Excellent. Nezu clapped his paws together. I believe that concludes our meeting here. Good job, everyone. He will make us millions. I don't give a shit about money. This thing will put our names in history books. Quirk animal, man. One with intelligence quirk and an extended lifespan. Nezu shook the memories away from his head as he once again gulped down the cup of coffee. The scar on his left eye itched. It always does whenever he has one of these awful nightmares. Awful memories. Setting down the cup of coffee with a growl, Nezu peeked out of the curtain. The sunlight immediately attacked his eyes. The realization that he had slept through the entire morning hit him as hard as the strength he used to pull the curtain closed. With yet another groan, Nezu slowly made his way towards his laptop. However, before he could comfortably settle on it, he could hear his doorbell ring. Ding. Probably just some deliveries. Nezu opened his laptop and started typing. Ding. Ding. Maybe it's the HPSC with yet another proposal. That just makes it easier to ignore. Ding. 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 Those kids down the hallway are persistent today. Nezu thought he scared them off quite surely last week. Bang. 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 Those CRC members are going aggressive today, huh? Maybe it's best to get some blackmails materials on them after Al. Nezu. If you don't open this door right now, I'm going to kick it down. Dagnabbit, it was someone worse. Closing his laptop, Nezu made his way towards the door and opened it calmly. Shimura-san. He slightly bowed. What brings you to my humble abode? So you like Ultraman too? No, let me guess. Ultra 7? Izuku thought for a moment. I knew it. Izuku snapped his finger. That season was peak Ultraman. Yui poked her index fingers together. Of course I'll watch it with you, Kodai-san. Izuku showed her a beaming smile. When is good for you? If it's Friday, I can probably ask for a projector to use in here. Otherwise, we'll have to watch it on the computer, which we might have to sit quite close together to watch. Any day except for Friday. Got it. Izuku nodded. Chio watched the conversation go on with absolute confusion. She shook herself off the shock and turned to her assistant. Are you telepathic? Chio asked. Nope. Izuku held his head for a few seconds before answering. Then how the hell did she didn't even. What? She talks fine. Izuku tilted his head confusingly, an action Yui mimicked. What are you talking about? I'm too sober for this. Chio groaned. Go home, Kodai. It's getting late. Yui crossed her arms. No, you're not using that taco. Hey, I can understand you, after all. Chio blinked in amazement. Anyway, go home. It's an order. She's right, Kodai-san. Izuku turned to Yui, who was tilting her head yet again. I think I'll leave in 15 minutes. Are you sure you want to wait? We'll meet at the front gate, then. I need to talk to Shuzenji-sensei a bit and then I'll pack up. Yui gave him a thumbs up before exiting the room. That girl's a real mystery, huh? Chio whistled. I don't see it, though. Izuku scratched his head thinking. She doesn't talk but her body language conveys all her thoughts. She's very expressive. Maybe we should just agree that you operate on a level that mere mortals like me couldn't comprehend. Chio declared. We still need to address the notebook thing. What notebook thing? Later. Chio interrupted. You have a guest. Before Izuku could voice his question, something. Or rather, someone dropped from the ceiling. The creature in the suit stood proud on the chair with a cheerful smile as he introduced himself. Am I a dog, a mouse, a bear, or human? It's me, UA's one and only Principal Nezu. Nezu cheered. Good afternoon, Principal Nezu. Izuku slight bowed. Shuzenji-sensei said you want to speak with me? That is correct, Midoriya-kun. Nezu cackled. May I ask what it is about? Worry not, student of mine. Nezu assured as he sat down on the chair and gestured Izuku to sit down on the one in front of him. At that cue, Chiyo quietly left the room. I thought it is already past time I have a conversation with the school's first nurse. How are you today, Midoriya-kun? There's the exam incoming, so just dandy, I suppose. Izuku shrugged as he brewed the tea. But Shuzenji-sensei said I can help her with the hero course's treatment, so there's that to look forward to. It's good that you are passionate about this job, Midoriya-kun. Nezu nodded. Would you prefer to continue this after you have transferred to the hero course? Izuku froze in the middle of handing the cup of tea to Nezu. The chimera took it himself from Izuku's hand. You are here for a chance to transfer, after all. Nezu continued. And I believe you are more than qualified for that transfer. This is a bit sudden, Izuku admitted. I agree. But the end of the day, it's your choice. Nezu pointed out. Let's play out a scenario, then. Say I am giving you the transfer right now. Yes, or no, Midoriya-kun. If so, why? I don't know, Izuku muttered. I thought being a hero was the fastest way to do it. But now, doing this, it's different. I don't have to hurt anyone while still helping others. I've only ever wanted to help people. Doctor or hero. It just doesn't matter anymore. What about Shuzenji-san? She's both. Nezu studied Izuku's expression. There's that route for you to pursue. But Shuzenji-sensei can fight. With or without her quirk. Izuku argued. I would just be a liability. What good can healing one person bring when another one collapse? I understand. Then please, take all the time you need to consider your options. Nezu conceded, reminding himself to have a talk with Namori and Chiyo. I must apologize for donning this on you so suddenly. No, please, it's not. Izuku chuckled sheepishly. You just gave me a lot to think is all. That's great to know. Then, Nezu clapped his paws together before jumping down from the chair. I'm afraid I have taken enough out of your time today. I have someone who wishes to talk to you, and I believe he might be able to help you with your choices, if you would like. That's fantastic, Nezu-sensei. Thank you. Great. Shuzenji-san will inform you about the details tomorrow. I believe Kodai-kun is waiting for you? Ah, right. Izuku quickly grabbed his bag and headed out of the room. Before he closed the door, he turned to Nezu. As for your first question, I might be wrong, but you always give that honey badger vibe. Nezu showed a swift shocked expression before it turned into a nostalgic smile. You're still alive. Good. Nana firmly nodded as she welcomed herself inside. Then I can personally kill you myself. You miss your first day at UA. I start next week, Shimura. Nezu sighed as he closed the door. Teacher needs orientation too, Nezu. Nana scoffed as she sat down on a chair. I would have thought you're doing this to get fired if I didn't know you any better. Nana then proceeded to slam a letter with the word, resignation, on Nezu's table. The chimera took a look at it and just sighed. Which I fucking did. Nana glared at him. Do I need to ask you to explain to me why? It doesn't concern why, don't fucking use that on me. Nana rolled her eyes. Why? Because as I've told you multiple times before, I am not suitable to be a teacher. Nezu snapped back at Nana. In fact, I am the last thing on this planet suitable for that job. What good can intelligence do when the person giving it is so unhinged, Nana? I don't eat, I barely sleep. Every time I do, I was back at that place. The children aren't safe around me, Nana. No one does. Nana stayed quiet throughout Nezu's outburst. Even when he was done and gasping for breath, Nana stayed quiet as she gently guided him into a chair. She still stayed quiet as she held his palms in her hands, guiding his breath with her own. After Nezu had calmed down, Nana handed him a cup of water which the rat gratefully accepted. As Nezu slowly drank from the cup, Nana spoke in a soft, gentle tone. You remember Kotaro's birthday? The first time I took you to see my kids? Nezu nodded. Then you must remember how happy my daughter was when he played with you. Hell, you took over as her favorite uncle. Sorahiko was flabbergasted. Nana chuckled as Nezu also smiled slightly. That's when I realized you should be a teacher. It's just right. Nana, you know what happened to me. Nezu mumbled. How can I be sure they'll be safe around me? Because I saw it when you were playing with them. Your smile. Nana grinned. A kind, soft and genuine one. She then grabbed Nezu's resignation letter and handed it to him. I know you will be a great teacher, Nezu. Please, just give it a chance. Nana pleaded. The children need someone who's been through darkness to guide them to the light. Nezu shakily took the letter from Nana's hand. He stared at it for a few minutes in silence. With a tired sigh, he rubbed his eyes blackened from losing sleep. And he tore the letter to pieces. Chapter 19. Case 17. Yagi Toshinori aka All Might. Case file number 17. Yagi Toshinori aka All Might. Dear Diary. I think we've both knew that Yagi is an idiot. But at least he wasn't dense. That blonde oaf at least knows when someone makes a move on him. This green goofball didn't even know someone was proposing to him. Whoops. Inko winced as her eyes laid on Izuku sitting on a ladder with Izuku sitting on it with Himiko sitting on his shoulder. Judging from their constant blinking, Inko confirmed that she didn't tell them she was coming home early. Tell us you're home because you forgot your key. With a welcome banner in her hands, Himiko pleaded. Please? I don't think lying straight to your face would set a good example, Himiko. Inko admitted. Hold up, Himiko nay. Let's look at this positively. Izuku smugly smiled. Mom is alone. We still have time. Detective Midoriya. A familiar voice cut Izuku off as he stood up in a panic, forgetting where he was. With a surprise yelp, Himiko grabbed onto the wall as Izuku hugged her around her waist before the ladder collapsed. Inko watched attentively as her children hung onto each other from the ceiling. Is this normal in your house? Inko turned around and found Rei looking at the scene in shock. They're usually more gremlin than this, Inko shrugged. Shouldn't we help them down? Rei asked in concern. Inko only showed Rei a grin before turning back to her children. Rei watched in bewilderment as Izuku effortlessly dropped down on the ground and held his hands out, catching Himiko in a princess carry. Good catch, Izu-chan, Himiko giggled. Onwards to helping Rei sandpacks. I'm setting you down. Izuku smiled sweetly. And Todoroki just blasted us straight to the Shadow Realm with his fire. Mina groaned as Izuku lightheartedly giggled at her complaints. Did you at least win the fight? Izuku asked as he continued to write down answers to his homework. It was a tie. Time out, you know. Mina whistled with a pen in her mouth. What's your answer for this question, Midori? I went through that with you earlier, Ashido-san. Izuku casually replied. 3 times. Studying is hard. Mina threw herself onto the pink beanbag behind her. She then watched Izuku's focused expression for a while. Suddenly, an idea popped into Mina's head as she sat up and crawled over to Izuku with a smirk. Am I? Mina seductively called, making Izuku turn towards her. What's with that tone, Ashido-san? Izuku innocently asked. You know, I just put on a request to soundproof this room last week. That reminds me. I should put in a similar request for Hatsume-san's room. Izuku wondered. A lot of 1H have been asking for my help to rein her in on the weekends. A man and a woman, alone in a room, Mina whispered into his ears. Who knows what's going to happen in a closed room? Oh? Izuku quirked an eyebrow. Got you, Mina grinned. See, no one can resist the good ol' Mina's char. You make a great point, Ashido-san. Izuku cut Mina's off. We're alone, in a soundproof room, with no one to interrupt us. Am I Midori? Mina nervously asked. I suppose now would be a better time than ever. Especially with 2 of us here. Izuku grinned as he leaned over Mina, whose face was turning from pink to scarlet red. Izuku then leaned in, his lips next to Mina's ears. Mina suppressed a moan as Izuku's soft breath attacked her ears. Midori, if we're going to do it, at least let me. Get out your math homework, Ashido-san. We've got work to do. Immediately, Mina went straight for the door, attempting an escape. Has Rei settled into your house? Chio asked before she took a sip from the cup of tea in her hand. Yep. But to be fair, she doesn't have that much stuff to pack. Izuku answered. Mom had to drag her shopping yesterday. I surely hope her clothing choices aren't as terrible as her son? I'll have you know I have an amazing sense of fashion. You guys are just too behind time to understand them. Only Tokage-san gets me. Izuku stuck out his tongue before he shrugged. But then I would argue that this fashion sense is a Midoriya kind of thing. Mom said my dad was the one who bought all my shirts when I was young. Personally, I would file that as child abuse, but let's not get carried away. Chio deadpanned. I believe I've never heard you mention your dad before? He and Mom divorced when I was 6 or something, can't remember. Izuku shrugged. It was a mutual decision since they both worked too much. We still talk from time to time. He's in America now, actually. Your mom didn't change back to her maiden name after the divorce? She said it was not worth the paperwork. Izuku chuckled. Akatani isn't that good of a name, anyway. Your grandparents aren't going to be happy hearing that. Chio quirked an eyebrow. They'll forgive me. I'm their first grandchild. Izuku grinned. You tell me you don't have a soft spot for Tokage-san? Well played, child. Chio raised her hands in defeat. Now go back to your afternoon classes and ready for that appointment you have. After Izuku had waved her goodbye and disappeared behind the closed door, Chiyo's expression changed to one of disappointment as she let out a tired sigh while rubbing her tired eyes. She opened the drawer under her table and picked up a picture frame from it. Holding it up high, Chiyo again looked at the photo she took with her best friend's family and friends. Despite it being slowly more and more withered with time, Chiyo could still see a grumpy Sorahiko putting a teenage Toshinori in a headlock. On their left, was her younger self kneeling to hug an emerald-haired girl, while next to them was the girl's older brother hiding behind his parents. Akatani, and Midoriya, not Shimura, Chiyo whispered to herself with her gaze fixed to the picture. I knew that. I read the file. Her wrinkled fingers touched the frame tenderly. I shouldn't have gotten my hopes up. Maybe it's better this way. Her fingers stopped as they traced to Nana's face. Chiyo bit her lips, preventing them from shaking. She took a deep breath before putting the picture back into the drawer. With a heavy heart, she closed the drawer and turned back to her computer. Maybe it's better that the boy and his mother weren't a Shimura. She didn't think she could afford to get attached again. Have you ever thought about how small we are in this vast universe? Laying on the bed, Izuku wondered. No matter how impactful our actions are today or in the future, it will all but a blink in the near future. It's still lunch, Izuku. With the sandwich in her hand, Chiyo blinked. Have you been drinking coffee again? Well, yes, but that's not important now. Izuku abruptly replied. I have opened my third eye, my sixth sense, Chiyo-sensei. This realm, among many others, is destined for invasion. Only combat shall. All right, let's get you to bed, dear. Chiyo closed the drapes. I'll inform Namori that you won't be attending afternoon classes. I am fine, Chiyo-sensei. Izuku insisted. But I must inform this realm's protector of the upcoming invasion. They must be prepared for combat. I know. Chiyo half-heartedly agreed with him as she typed on her phone. We played that game yesterday, remember? At your house? With your mother and sister? You must be one of Earthrealm's champion, then, Izuku gasped. Yes, I am. And the Netherrealm might have me when it earns me. Now go back to bed. I swear I'm banning anything caffeine in this damn building. This is a lot of firepower in one room for career counseling. Izuku nervously commented as he took a quick look around the room. Two couches sitting directly opposite each other, surrounding a coffee table. On one of the couches, a blonde, dangerously malnutritioned man was sitting between Sorahiko and Nezu. On the opposite couch, Chiyo signaled him to take a seat next to her. It is career counseling, Midoriya-kun. Nezu clarified as Izuku took a seat next to Chiyo. This is just at a different scale, I suppose. I'll leave it to Yagi-kun to give you the details. Okay. Then why are you, Torino-san and Shuzenji-sensei here? Because this is probably going to be the most outrageous story you've ever heard. Nezu explained. And it is going to be unbelievable. That's why we are here to clarify any doubts or concerns you may have during and after. Izuku hesitantly nodded in understanding. Seeing that, Toshinori took that as his sign to introduce himself. I believe this is our second meetings, young Midoriya. Toshinori spoke up. My name is Yagi Toshinori. On paper, I am merely All Might's private assistant. This is not our second meetings, though. Izuku cut him off. Excuse me. Chiyo glared at Toshinori. Is it not? My apologies, young Midoriya, but I only remember our first interaction, which was during the sport festival. No, I'm pretty sure we've talked plenty of times before. Izuku showed a confused expression. The USJ, that backyard incident with Togaike-san, occasional encounters in UA's hallway, at the staff room sometimes actually. What did you mean by All Might's private assistant? I don't believe I'm following, young Midoriya. Toshinori looked over at Sorahiko and Chiyo, who were showing a similarly confused expression. Meanwhile, Nezu's curious smile remained on his face. I mean, All Might is All Might's private assistant? How does that even work? I mean, it could work if you do everything by yourself, which you absolutely could since you're All Might. But why call yourself your own assistant? That's just weird, isn't it? Izuku tilted his head. Also, I just learned All Might's real name. Isn't it supposed to be a huge secret? I've followed your entire career since debut, and this is the first time I've heard of it. Also, why do you look like you haven't eaten anything since you've escaped being buried alive for a month? Izuku's rant was met with absolute bewilderment from the three adults in the room. Nezu's curious smile turned into one of mischievous grin as he listened to Izuku's discovery. Shuzenji-sensei. Toshinori looked at Chiyo. I assure you, Toshinori, that I did not say a single word about this to him. Chiyo replied, still trying to make sense of the situation. Why is everyone looking so surprised? Izuku asked Nezu. They didn't know. They do, Midoriya-kun. How you do is why they are in such state. Nezu cackled as he offered Izuku a cup of tea. Mind if I ask how you came to such a baffling conclusion? Did someone tell you? It's very obvious, isn't it? Izuku accepted the cup of tea. Let's put the similar eyes, hair color and hairstyle aside. Anytime I meet him it's always the same clothing. The way he speaks, and his voice is almost the same. Whenever I walk into the staff room, he's in All Might seat. And even though his name is not on the staff roster, he seems to be very familiar with the rest of the staff. I just put 2 and 2 together. And I believe you haven't told anyone about your discovery? I thought everybody knew. Izuku mumbled. It's like telling them the sky is blue. Like, what even is the point? It took several minutes for the other 3 to recover from their shock and for Nezu to calm down from laughing his throat off. After a frantic process of ensuring Izuku wouldn't tell anyone about this, Toshinori finally sat straight up and looked into Izuku's eyes. Young Midoriya, I heard you've been having troubles deciding which path you want to move forward in the future? Izuku nodded. Toshinori asked again. Why do you want to be a hero or a doctor, then? I want to help. Izuku looked at him with determination. I understand that there are a lot of messed up things out there, and not everyone is willing to put themselves out there to solve it. Even if I'm the only one, even if the changes I could do is minuscule, I want to extend my hand, so that someone would have a chance to grab it. Toshinori studied Izuku's eyes for a few seconds before he himself broke into a smile. He saw Sorahiko showed an amused scoff while Chiyo just nodded proudly. Young Midoriya, what do you know about my quirk? The media always theorized it as some types of strength enhancement. Izuku squinted his eyes. But you always deflected the question whenever it was brought up. My quirk's name is One for All, Toshinori announced. And I am its 8-holder. 8-holder? Izuku repeated. You mean there are 7 other people with a similar quirk? Not similar. Toshinori corrected. Just one. There were 7 people who held onto this quirk before me. And I want you, Midoriya Izuku, to be the 9th holder. Taking in Izuku's silence, Toshinori continued. Allow me to paint you a clear story. One of 2 brothers, from the dawn of quirks. Rei-san. Himiko lazily looked up from the couch. Is Izu-chan and Inko-san home yet? He said he has some career counseling to go to. Rei thought before answering. Do you want to wait for him or have dinner now? I'll wait for him, Himiko replied. What about you? Eating now or wait for them? Waiting. Rei kindly giggled. It's been a while since I've had a proper family's dinner. Ah, I was going to hug you, but the couch already got me, Himiko giggled. Rain check? Of course, Himiko-chan. Rei softly smiled before she once again relaxed herself on the comfort of the chair. So this all-for-one terrible name, by the way, had a quirkless brother who resented him for his reign of terror. Yes. Yagi nodded to Izuku's recap. Due to his crazy obsession, all-for-one forced a stockpiling quirk into his brother. But as it turns out, this quirkless brother has a quirk. One that allows him to transfer it to another person. The combination of the stockpiling and the transferable quirk has created One for All. A quirk dedicated to taking down all-for-one. It has been passed down for 7 generations before you, the 8th. Yes. And you want me, to be the 9th? Yes. Yagi nodded once more. What do you say, young Midoriya? Izuku took a few more minutes to blink the request into his head. He turned to Chiyo. Yes, it's real. All of this is real, Chiyo sighed. He turned to Sorahiko. No trick here, kid. Sorahiko calmly assured him before taking another bite out of the taiyaki. The rat, the harpy and I have been with 2 generations of One for All. Izuku raised an eyebrow. You know the previous holder? Who are they? The adults in the room looked at one another. Putting on a smile, Nezu answered. Shimura Nana was a fellow hero, friend. Nezu took a deep breath. She was like family to us. She was my mentor for quite some time before she passed on, One for All, to me and… Toshinori coughed into his hand. Felled by all for one. I'm sorry to hear that. Izuku muttered regretfully for bringing up a sour topic. Her name sounds familiar. Was she a popular hero? I wouldn't say popular, like that harpy or the blonde oaf. Sorahiko pointed his cane at Toshinori and Chiyo, who stuttered and scoffed in response. But she did make the headline a few times. The Marvel heroine, Skyward was her name. I definitely know her. Izuku grabbed his head, trying his best to remember. I just couldn't remember from where. As interesting as that is, I believe we're straying further from our original purpose here. Nezu clapped his paws together to gain the attention of everyone else. Right, right. Izuku coughed into his fist before looking back at Toshinori. Just. Why me? I'm sure there are better candidates out there. There might be.
Toshinori agreed. But I saw this boy who stared straight back at death for someone he just met. This boy who stood up for the others, believing in what is right. This hero who risked his own safety for others. That is the type of person who I believe deserves to inherit One for All. The adults watched in bated breath as Izuku sat in silence. The white noise of the clock ticking along with students shouting occasionally through the window became the only noise occupying the room. Nezu only smiled cryptically as Chio and Sorahiko impatiently tapped on their canes while Toshinori nervously gauged the reaction of Izuku. After less than 10 minutes later, Izuku finally spoke up.
What does it stockpile? Excuse me. Toshinori asked. One for All. You said it is a stockpiling quirk. Izuku repeated clearer. What does it stockpile? Is there a reason for this sudden inquiry, Midoriya-kun? Nezu asked. On paper, my quirk is called Healing Contact. Izuku explained. But its real name is Cellular Reconstruction. I can rewrite a living cell structure, making it healthier or in some cases, preventing it from dying out. But my own cells are constantly in this state of change, putting me in a low-energy operation. Chio's eyes widened at Izuku's explanation. I see. That's an amazing quirk, young Midoriya. Toshinori confusingly scratched his head. But what has that got to do with One for All's stockpile? Because if One for All stockpiles on energy, Chio mumbled terrifyingly. It could potentially zap Midoriya off all of his already scarce energy, putting him in a coma at the very least. Or death. Nezu concluded. Realizing the possible outcome, a look of horror dawned on Toshinori's face. Aren't we getting too ahead of ourselves here? Sorahiko chimed in. Maybe One for All might be the solution to the kid's energy problem. We're talking about unlimited and unconditional healing here. Yes, but the risks outweigh the benefits here. Nezu countered. We have no sure way of knowing what One for All will do to Midoriya-kun. I'm not risking my student's safety on a what if, Torino-san. Sorahiko grumpily grunted as he acknowledged the logic. Maybe we could look into its previous holders? Izuku suggested. They might have had the same issue. We could also learn more about One for All, about what it stockpiles on. Does this mean you accept? Toshinori quirked an eyebrow. I'm still on the fence. Izuku lowered his head. It's a huge responsibility, Yagi-san. Even without the current predicament, I wouldn't know if I am up for the task. I need some time to consider my option, like Nezu-sensei had suggested. A reasonable reason. Nezu nodded with a smile. We will look into One for All, Midoriya-kun. Take all the time you need to make your choice. Remember, you can always talk to any one of us here if you want. Thank you, Nezu-sensei. Izuku bowed. This is one interesting career counseling. Indeed, it has been. Nezu cackled maniacally. Now that we've reached a conclusion, I believe you should go home, Midoriya-kun. We've kept you here long enough. Oh, one thing before I go. Izuku remembered. Yagi-san, could I have a look at your injury? You can heal it? Sorahiko whistled out and impressed. I can try. Izuku shrugged. Usually, such an old injury would be impossible to heal. But since Yagi-san's cell might be affected by One for All, maybe I can use that to heal as much as I can. I see no harm in trying. Yagi nodded as he pulled up his shirt, revealing a gnarly injury. Taking that as permission, Izuku gently put his hand on Toshinori's injury. As soon as Izuku activated his quirk, blackness engulfed his vision. That's a reasonable course of action to take. A man with white hair went over his eyes, put a piece of popcorn into his mouth. They'd better do one hell of extended research, then. A man wearing headbands scoffed, turning to one with 2 scar lines ran across his left eyes. I'd rather not have another die of overclocking, especially one so young. I concur. With how much energy, One for All had stockpiled and will continue to do so, I'm not sure the boy will last longer than a year. What a missed opportunity, though. A bald man yelled out in frustration. He's such a good candidate. Now we may or may not back at square one. 7th, you've been oddly quiet. A man with short, black hair commented. Is there something on your mind? Or is this a start of a phase like 2nd? Fuck you, 6th. A man with scar in the middle of his face cursed. It can't be, right. A woman with black hair mumbled under her breath, watching the green hairboy collapsed on the floor while Chio checked up on him. He is. A yellow silhouette watched his mentor in silence. Asterisk. Detective Midoriya. Inko turned around at her name being called. The withered figure of the retired number 1 hero was approaching her with a surprised look on his face. Yagi-san. Inko greeted. I didn't expect to find you here. Neither did I, detective. Toshinori coughed into his hand. But to be fair, This is the last place I would expect any acquaintance of mine. Just acquaintance? I'm hurt. Inko faked a crestfallen expression. No, I didn't. What I meant was, of course, you're not just an acquaintance. You're Iui, Toshinori stuttered, panicky. Aren't you a little too gullible to be the #1 hero? Inko laughed as she slapped him on the back. So, what brings you to Tartarus, Yagi-san? I'm just here to give some insights about the security on. You know. Toshinori explained. What brings you here, detective? An overdue conversation with an old friend, I suppose. Inko mumbled before she put back her confident expression. Anyways, are you coming for dinner tonight? Of course, detective. Toshinori smiled. I do need to discuss with young Midoriya about a certain matter. Oh, right. About that. Inko awkwardly scratched her head with a sheepish smile. Izuku and Himiko won't be at home tonight. Himiko has girls' night, and Izuku told me his friend's family invited him over for dinner. So it'll be just us. Toshinori looked away. Yeah, just us. Inko smiled. Still wanna come? Of course. Toshinori quickly answered. I must go home now. I am underprepared. Inko showed a beaming smile at that answer. She then wiggled her finger, signaling Toshinori to lean down. The man followed and found his ear being whispered at with a soft, teasing tone. I do hope you won't just refer to me as detective for dinner later, Toshinori. Toshinori's heart beat so fast that Rumi had to tell him to stop breathing. The Tartarus visit that was mentioned in Chapter 13. Chapter 20. Case 18. Shiozaki Ibara Case File Number 18, Shiozaki Ibara. Dear Diary, holy shit, she has the childhood friend subplot and she might actually win this war. I'm heading out now, Izuku announced with a low voice. Be back before dinner. Are you sure going out now is a good idea, Izuku-kun? Rei concernedly asked. It's only been 2 days. Shish. Izuku quickly shushed her in a panic. Mom and sis are still sleeping. This is my only chance to sneak out. Right, sorry. Rei whispered at the same volume as Izuku. But shouldn't you still be resting? Just 2 days ago, you were bleeding from, well, everywhere. I was knocked out before the bleeding, so it wasn't like I remembered anything. Izuku shrugged. What about those voices you said you heard before you were knocked out? Rei wondered. 7 different voices, wasn't it? I was a patient at a psychiatric hospital, Izuku-kun. I know what is concerning and what's not. That's definitely in the concerning category. It's probably the teacher's voices. Izuku waved it off. I was pretty much a bleeding mess at that point. So you admit you were made a mess, thus admitting that you should rest? Izuku gulped. You are surprisingly scary, Rei-san. I am a mother of 4, Izuku-kun. Rei grinned. I know how to deal with kids. Now, either rest or help me with breakfast. Or lunch, for the 2 sleeping ogresses in there. Rei-san, Izuku pouted. It's the weekend. I promise I'll be back before dinner. I'll even get some groceries on the way back. Rei was locked in a staring competition with Izuku's puppy eyes for a rough 5 minutes. For her, then, with a defeated sigh, Rei conceded. I'll call you to check up. If you don't pick up, I'm bringing Inko. With a beaming smile, Izuku nodded and left the house. Rei had to wonder how Fuyumi was able to deal with her students. Speaking of, she should tell Izuku about her children coming to visit next weekend. Moving? Why all of a sudden? Izuku sat up from his bed, tiredly answering his mother. Even though it's been almost a year since Izuku became like this, the pain and guilt that Inko felt just kept getting worse and worse. It's complicated, honey. Inko steeled her heart and answered. But to put it simply, I have a bad feeling about this area. Besides, the area we're moving to is pretty quiet and calm. The neighbors seem really nice, too. It'll be good for you. It's also closer to my job. So I have to say goodbye to the Bakugos, to Aunt Mitsuki and Uncle Masazuru? To Kachan, to Kaine? Izuku asked with a shaky voice. For now, yes. Inko nodded, not daring to meet his eyes. But you can still see them from time to time. I promise. I'm sure little Katsuki would be thrilled to come over and visit us. Instead of responding, Izuku only nodded sadly. Holding his hands up, Inko noticed Izuku's sadness turned into one of conflict. Ever since this quirk came in, Izuku's life has completely changed. Izuku was only allowed to even go to school all thanks to his extreme stubbornness. Even then, he could only watch as his friends went out and played among themselves while he couldn't even run. He had to endure people giving him a look of annoyance or pity. Inko had to watch her son who was so full of energy, happiness and innocence being slowly taken away by his quirk. Izuku. Ibara looked up from her book and smiled upon seeing a familiar tired face. I did not expect to see you today. I had to sneak out. Izuku explained with a smile as he put on the apron. Mom was very adamant about me resting up for the rest of this weekend. Considering the event that transpired from what I heard, I must agree with her, Izuku. Abara clasped her hands together. Though I am grateful that you are here to help us, I am inclined to wrap you up and tie you into a bed. What happened to no quirk use in public? That does not seem to deter you throughout our whole childhood, does it? Abara smiled. What happened to the rule-abiding Abara that I know and love? Izuku dramatically gasped. What have you done to her? Where is she, you harlot? Clearly, she is incapable of making you understand the importance of remaining healthy. Abara flicked Izuku's forehead. Boo, Izuku booed. I liked her more. Abara giggled. Fine, you can help me with distributing the food. The children like you more than me, anyway. I'll take care of the rest. You sure? Izuku raised an eyebrow. That's a lot of work for one person to handle. My vines can help me. I'm allowed to use my quirk within the church's premises. Abara explained. It's good practice for the upcoming exam. There's my rule-abiding friend. Izuku giggled, before a vine softly smacked him on the head. Nice to meet you, Midoriya-san. Abara smiled as she greeted the new addition to her class. I'm Shiozaki Abara, but you can call me Abara. Midoriya Izuku. Nice to meet you. With a tired smile, Izuku greeted his seatmate back before slamming his head onto the table. Undeterred by the weird action, Abara continued. May I ask why are you joining us so late, Midoriya-san? School has already been going on for a week. We just moved here. Izuku tiredly replied without even looking up. We had to move all our stuff first. So you are new to this area. What a wonderful opportunity the Lord has bestowed upon us. Abara cheered. I can walk you around town, introduce you to a few popular places if you wish, Midoriya-san. I can't, Izuku dejectedly declined. Oh my, what a shame. Do your parents not allow you to venture after school? It's more of a, I can't. Izuku turned towards Abara with a sad smile. My quirk makes me tired all the time. It's difficult for me to do any strenuous activity, or any activity. What is your quirk, if you don't mind me asking? Abara asked. Mine is vine, as you can see. Here I thought that was just a cool hairstyle. Izuku chuckled. Mine is, let's just call it, healing contact, and it uses my own energy to heal others. That's a wonderful quirk you have been blessed with, Midoriya-san, Abara replied honestly. I know. Izuku grimly chuckled. I just wish it didn't make me feel so tired. Quote. Midoriya-san. Class is still going. Abara whispered to her new friend, who had his head on the table. 5 more minutes, please. Izuku groaned through his breath. School ends in 5 minutes, Midoriya-san. Abara pouted at Izuku's unresponsiveness. Fine, then. I'll just leave without you. But you said that every day, Shiozaki. Izuku finally turned towards her with a pout. You always end up walking home with me. Maybe I won't today. Abara looked away. The two got so engrossed in their argument that they didn't notice the whole class was looking at them. Shouldn't you stop them? One of the students pointed at the scene while looking at the teacher in charge. They can flirt all they want as long as they understand the lesson. The teacher casually replied as he continued to write on the board. Which they do. They're my top students. Aren't you supposed to not play favoritism? Another student asked. It's more of a suggestion. The teacher shrugged. It definitely isn't, though. The student mumbled under his breath. Too bad, then. The teacher whistled. All right, class is over. Everybody go home. Remember to hand up your homework on Friday. Good morning, Shiozaki-san. Izuku bowed and greeted. And you, Midoriya-kun. Kiba greeted back. Abara is still preparing. Do you want to come in? Thank you for the offer, Shiozaki-san, but I'll just wait out here. Izuku respectfully declined. How's the garden? The tomatoes are growing quite well, I believe. Kiba took a quick look at his garden. Too well, in fact. I might have to give some away. I'll tell my daughter to bring you here whenever it's time to harvest. Can't wait. Izuku chuckled. Sorry for the wait, Midoriya-kun. Izuku glanced over to his friend jogging towards him in her new middle school uniform. I hope this won't be an everyday thing from now on, daughter. Kiba chuckled. You're going to be late if you take this long to prepare every day. I just had a rough hair day, father. Abara calmly replied while twirling her hair. It takes a moment to comb them. You look great. Izuku complimented her. Kiba had to suppress a laugh as his daughter looked away with a red face. Quote. 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 Quote.
Shiozaki. God forbids me from saying this, but what in the hell of earth are you wearing, Midoriya Izuku? Obara glared at Izuku's t-shirt. It said, pants. I think it's funny. Izuku pouted. I am not letting you wear that to your own celebratory dinner, Midoriya-kun. Obara grabbed his hand and dragged him to the direction opposite from their destination. Why would you even wear that outside baffles me. Now you just sound like my mom. Inko-san is a wise person. You are blessed to have her fashion opinion. Obara continued to drag him towards a clothing shop. Listen to her next time, I beg of you. It's not even that big of a celebration. Izuku rolled his eyes. Maybe not to you, Midoriya-kun. Obara countered. But as your friend, it sparks me joy to see you are no longer burdened by the downside of your quirk. It's still not that big of a deal. Izuku nervously looked around the shop. It is to me. Now, Obara raised the t-shirt to Izuku's chest to measure. Try this on. Dot. 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 Fourth place. Izuku whistled. I might have thought twice before making fun of your hair now. These vines have been carrying you ever since we were children, Izuku. Obara replied with closing eyes while relaxing her body. You should be thankful for them instead of fearing them. I remembered them wrapping me up like a mummy. Izuku twirled his finger on one of Obara's vines. You've only yourself to blame for that event, I'm afraid. Obara giggled. Which class are you in? 1C. Izuku replied as he continued to style Obara's hair. I didn't know UA is opening another hero class. They aren't, though. Izuku tilted his head. I'm in general education. Obara turned around. Izuku leaned back, keeping distance from Obara's approaching face. Dot. 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 Oh hey, Obara. Izuku turned towards the sound of his hospital room's door being violently opened. How's school, Todd? Izuku was cut off as Obara jumped towards him and tackled him into a hug. Thanks heavens. He heard Obara's sob. I thought the worst when I heard about what happened at the USJ. You of all people should have known, shouldn't you? Izuku sheepishly chuckled as he embraced Obara. I told you I'm like a cockroach. Once I got into your life, you're not getting rid of me that easily. I've told you plenty of times that is a terrible comparison. Obara chuckled. At least compare yourself to a leech. Isn't that just Hamiko-ne? I'm inclined to think she's more of a vampire. She always hides behind you whenever I come by. Obara turned to her right at the sound and found Izuku leaning his head against the bench while snoring softly. With a smile, Obara gently set Izuku's head on her thighs, patting his head slightly. Despite all the years they've been together, Obara never got sick of the sight of her friend nodding off. She quietly guided her vines to a playing speaker nearby and lowered its volume. After all those years, I will admit it feels strange to not have you in the same class as I do anymore, Izuku. Obara chuckled. If I say that to you while you are awake, I'm afraid you will tease me for a long time. I can't imagine how different I would be if I had not grown up with you. Maybe I would be a lot colder and reserved. Maybe I would be very narrow-minded, susceptible to placing judgment on everyone else. Obara whispered. But I do know one thing. I will never let go of this special position, being by your side. With her finger, Obara poked Izuku's cheek. Unsurprisingly, you are quite a popular individual. But that doesn't mean I'm going to give this up to anyone else. May we continue to be together from here on out, just as we have been for the last decade, Izuku. She closed her eyes, drifting off to sleep with her most important person by her side. Merry belated Christmas and a Happy New Year to everyone. I planned to drop this on Christmas, but it's been pretty crazy these past few days of moving on to 2024. I think I turned this chapter into a rom-com light novel. Dear God. Next thing you know, a blonde girl from a foreign land is going to fall in love with him. Oh no, there's two blonde girls from a foreign land. By the way, Izuku moved to Obara's area when they were 6. Not me giving Obara the childhood friend plot that was hinted somewhat in case number 11 and case number 14. Chapter 21. Case 19, Hatsume Mei. Case file number 19, Hatsume Mei. No other side effects. No vomiting, coughing, sneezing, bleeding. Chio tapped the pen on her checklist. I'm fine. 100% operation. A little hungry, actually. Izuku yawned. That was probably just one for all's defense mechanism. Defense mechanism or not, I'm not comfortable with the idea of looking past my student vomiting blood while bleeding from every place one could imagine. Chio scolded him before reaching into her pocket and pulled out some money. Here. Go buy some food before going to class. Is this my allowance? Izuku gasped as he accepted the money. Am I finally recognized as your grandson? That would just make it more complicated for Setsuna, so no. Chio straightforwardly answered. But I will say you're my most tolerable student till date. That's probably the best compliment I'll ever fish out of you, so I'll take it. Izuku giggled mischievously. Also, what did you mean when you said it'll make it more complicated for Tokage-san? Because she likes you, Midoriya. Chio told him. Isn't it obvious? Izuku scoffed. I don't think she would hang out or even talk with someone she dislikes. Tokage-san strikes me as someone who is very clear about who she likes and hates. No, I mean it as you know what, I am not having this conversation again. Chio raised her hands in defeat. All you one for all S users are the same. Thick-headed idiots. I am not yet a one for all S user nor am I thick-headed. Izuku pouted. But were Yagi-san and his mentor oblivious? Yagi, I understand. His status as the number one hero comes with many advancements from women. It makes it hard for him to recognize who was being genuine and who wasn't. Chio sighed. As for Nana, that woman is hopeless. No human expression would be able to describe how dense she was. Sounds like you had a hard time. Izuku raised an eyebrow. I always do. Chio scoffed as she pushed Izuku outside of the office with her cane. But that is a story for another time. Now get going, you young gremlin. After Izuku was pushed out and the door had been closed, Chio sat back down on her chair, yet her mind lingered on the conversation. It lingered on how broken she became after the only person she ever loved died. It lingered on Nana's aloof, yet caring nature. She was prone to anger, yet always found it in her to forgive. A cheery, energetic person underneath that ice-cold glare she gave. How different, yet similar she was to Izuku. It kept lingering on how much she wished things were different, despite it being a long-gone dream. Chio let out a sigh as she tiredly rubbed her eyes with her fingers, before putting her full attention towards the computer screen. Man, not again. Setsuna groaned before she threw the paper away, letting it float aimlessly before landing on the ground. From her seat, Abara commanded one of her vines to pick up the paper and bring it back to her. She took a quick second of skimming through the paper before turning to Setsuna. How many times has it been? Abara asked. 3. Setsuna dejectedly replied. Principal Nezu is surprisingly strict when it comes to this. Having a pet, especially a reptile, is a long-term and serious commitment, Tokage-san. Abara set the paper on the table. Principal Nezu has to do all he needs to ensure you are not getting this achy monitor on a whim. I'm not. Setsuna pouted. I've been researching and buying enclosure, accessories, supplements, every single thing needed. Now, I have an entire terrarium in my room without the animal. Why are you even considering a pet here? Toguru questioned. Just have the damn lizard at your house. You think I haven't tried that? Setsuna glared at him. My parents don't allow pets at home. It's either now, or after graduation when I've found my own place. I believe it would be easier if someone with a pet vouches for you. Nito suggested. Like Kon-sensei. He wouldn't agree. Yui offered. I barely know Koda. He's probably too shy to do it, anyway. Setsuna planted her face into the pillow. Is there really no way? Abara watched Setsuna with a conflicted expression, before letting out a tired sigh. Izuku might be able to help. Abara clasped her hands together. He has a pet, and I believe Principal Nezu favors him above the rest of us. Yui looked at Abara in shock. Midoriya has a pet. Setsuna gasped. He's never mentioned it before. Or is it a recent thing? He has had Axel, that's its name, before we started middle school. Abara hummed. It was kind of an impulse purchase, but Izuku is responsible enough to keep it happy and healthy ever since. Wait, ever since before you started middle school? Pony sat up in excitement. That's quite a long time. What is it? An axolotl. Abara smiled. A pink GFP axolotl, to be precise. I shan't bore you with the details, but he decided to bring it home with him after seeing the condition it was in and took care of it ever since. An axolotl, huh? Nito chuckled. That fits him. Extreme healing capability, kind and reserved nature, cute, dorky face that makes you want to hug him all day. Abara swiftly whacked Nito's head with one of her vines before turning to Setsuna. I can ask him to vouch for you, if you wish to. But you might have to convince him yourself. He is very strict about responsibility for a pet. Thank you, Shiozaki. Setsuna smiled brightly at Abara, who returned with an appreciative smile. Convincing Midoriya, huh? Maybe I should wear my hoodie. A resounding, no, was yelled among everyone, and Yui, who raised a comically large board with a red X He who snitched. Damn it. Izuku clicked his tongue as he whispered a curse under his breath. He turned behind to find a group of robots approaching him. Quote. Am I finally getting jumped? Izuku tilted his head. Also, why are you guys in such terrible shape? Remember that time you snitched on us? The seemingly leader of the group spoke up. Vividly. Izuku nodded. We might be able to forgive you for that sin. The robot offered. If you agree to help us, that is. Okay. Izuku hesitantly nodded. I do owe you guys for that. What do you need? Are you aware of an individual called Hatsume Mei? I don't remember anyone with that name coming to the nurse's office. Oh, I remember some people from the support course who visited mentioned that name. Is that them? Most likely. The robot confirmed. And recently, she has noticed our existence. Izuku swore he saw the robot's shudder. She has been kidnapping some of our members for her own experiments. The teacher doesn't stop her. We consulted with Power Loader on the matter. The robot hung its head from disappointment. All he said was, better you guys than my workshop, before popping another bottle of vodka. Izuku only stifled a laugh before asking. So, what do you want me to do? Tell her to stop. If you are able to. The robot confirmed before he reached his hand behind. If not, we have this very poisonous syringe that you could. I'll talk to her. Izuku cut it off. Put it away. Or better, give it to me so I could throw it away. Is Midoriya here? Higuri bursted into the staff room, looking around frantically. I need to talk to Hai. Quickly reacting to the loud shouting from her coworker, Namuri grabbed a plastic water bottle and threw it at his face.
Barge in quieter, Majima? Namori hissed quietly. He's sleeping. Higari squinted his eyes open as he rubbed the spot that the water bottle landed on his face and found a softly snoring Izuku sleeping on a couch, with Namori sitting on another chair next to him with a pile of papers on her thighs. Oh, sorry. Higari apologized. Why is he sleeping here, though? He's been helping Inui with some students' counselings. Namori explained. Some students find it easier if the one they talk to isn't growling all the time. I see. Higari nodded. How long until he wakes up? It's been 15 minutes, Namori looked at her phone, so I'd say 15 more. I don't think I can wait that long. Higari sighed. Rather, I don't think she can wait that long. Are we talking about your prodigy? Namori raised an eyebrow. We're talking about my absolute worst nightmare ever since I accepted this job. Higari clarified. But yes, Hatsume is cooking again. It's Friday, Majima. Namori groaned. Why'd you let her cook? What convention is she trying to violate this time? I don't know, all of them. Higari cried out. Point is, I need Midoriya to stop her. Can you wake him up? Higari stopped and gulped as Namori shot him the deadliest, most threatening glare he's ever seen. With a tired sigh, he left the staff room leaving a message. Please tell him to head straight for the support course after he wakes up. I'll try to slow her down. Izuku-kun. Ochako ran towards him. Midoriya-kun. Although appearingly calmer, Tenya walked towards Izuku with a fluttering heart and a cheerful expression. Behind them, Tsuyu and Shoto followed with a smile. Good afternoon, Uraraka-san, Iida-san, Todoroki-san and Asui-san. Izuku greeted them. Are you guys here for support items upgrade? Yep. Ochako nodded. The exam is coming soon, and we're doing some quick final upgrades to make sure there won't be any issue. I told you to call me, Midoriya-chan. Tsuyu put a finger on her lips. It's a little unexpected, seeing you here. Do you need something from the support course? It's more like someone. Izuku chuckled. Oh, I almost forgot. Todoroki-san, Rei-san told me to tell you about family dinner this Friday. Your sister and brother are coming, too. I see. Shoto nodded. I'll see you Friday, Midoriya. What flower do you like? Red rose? Peony? I don't know much about flowers, Izuku hummed in thought, not paying attention to Tsuyu elbowing Shoto. I do like some daisies, but I guess I like whichever one is given to me. If you don't mind me asking, Midoriya-kun. Tenya cut in. But who exactly are you look? Tenya's question was never finished as the door next to the group blasted open. Before Izuku's brain could register what was going on, he felt a heavy weight crash into him, knocking them both down to the ground. Hatsume. A gruff, annoyed voice was heard shouting. Stop blowing up the workshop. We went through more fire extinguishers than we've had in 3 years. Now, Power Loader Sensei. A cheeky feminine voice chuckled. Failure is the mother of all successes. If this many explosions set us back, oh, hey, are you perhaps a customer? As the smoke settled, Izuku's eyes met with a beautiful pair of yellow, crosshair-shaped eyes studying him. her pink dreadlocks entwined with his green, curly hair as she leaned in closer to Izuku. That depends. Izuku smiled, comfortable just laying on the floor. Are you Hatsume Mei? One and only. Mei's smile turned wider. Hatsume Mei, genius inventor, CEO of the future Hatsume Industries, at your service. Nice to meet you. Izuku chuckled at her enthusiasm. Midoriya Izuku, apprentice nurse, unknown of the future, at your beck and call. Now this is a sight to behold. Chio whistled. Izuku looked up from his book and smiled at the sight of his mentor. You don't look as pissed as you were when you left. Is it safe to assume that nothing terrible happened? Yeah. Those dumb kids were just fooling around and ended up triggering the alarm. Chio retold as she sat down on her chair. I'm more invested in what I'm looking at right now. Oh, this? Izuku showed her his book cover. Juru-san gave me a ticket to her parents' concert later this evening, so I'm using this free time to read up some information about them. It's really interesting. Not what I'm referring to, but she invited you, as in go together with her. Like a date? She said it was an extra ticket. Izuku shrugged. I shouldn't read between the lines. She dug her own grave, then. Chio shrugged. But I'm actually talking about Hatsume sleeping on you right now. At the mention of her own name, Mei groaned uncomfortably and snuggled closer into Izuku's stomach. With a gentle smile, Izuku patted her head softly. Majima-sensei sent her here on a timeout, Izuku explained. She looked like she hadn't slept for a few days, so I told her to, and she said she would only do it if I let her sleep on me, so I let her. She really took my advice to heart, huh? Chio mumbled and impressed. What advice? Not important. Anyway, how does this make you feel? Flattered, I guess. Izuku hummed. She feels safe enough around me to let herself fall asleep. There's no better compliment than that. Good God, Chio exasperatedly sighed. This genetic is driving me fucking insane. So, you here for a baby? Mei grinned. Based on your look, I'd say a sleeping assist baby, but I don't have those on hands or prototypes, so that might take a while. Better get back to work, then. She immediately turned to her workbench, ignoring Izuku and Hagari. While Hagari just let out yet again a defeated sigh, Izuku just chuckled in amusement as he watched Mei work.
Sorry about her. Higari finally spoke up. She's been pretty excited over this new project we're having for the Hero Courses exam. Nothing to apologize for, Majima-sensei. Izuku waved it off. It's always nice to see someone being enthusiastic over something they like. But I do need to talk to her about something. I can pass on the message for you, if you want. Higari offered. The robots are having complaints about Hatsume-san, dissecting them for educational purposes. Izuku relayed the information. I was sent to stop her before the situation developed into a more confrontational manner. Yeah, I'm aware. Higari sighed. I'm afraid there's nothing I can say that'll make her stop, Midoriya. I see. Izuku nodded in understanding. Do you mind if I try? Have at it. Higari gestured a hand at a maniacally laughing Mei. If you can do it, I'll throw in a free support item. Anything you want. In the meantime, I'll try and get ahead of this damages she caused. Higari then left, with a bottle of whiskey in hand. Izuku only gave a sheepish chuckle before turning to Mei. Hatsume-san. Izuku called out to no result as Mei didn't even twitch at the mention of her name. Mei-san. Izuku tried again, only to be met with a similar outcome. He then pulled a chair and sat at a safe distance away from Mei's work, but still close enough to observe what she was doing. To describe Mei's work with a simple, amazing, is comparable to calling All Might's legacy is cool. The way she quickly yet precisely assembled her inventions made Izuku glued his eyes to her. He watched in admiration as Mei held her newly assembled bracelet up and studied it, before letting out a sigh and a proud smile before setting it to the side. What's that? Mei turned towards Izuku. You're still here, nurse. Mei tilted her head. Yep. Izuku smiled. That bracelet you just made. May I ask what it's for? This baby. Mei showed him a wide, genuine smile as her eyes glinted with excitement. This is a prototype baby for my exam. I call her, suppressant bracelet. What does it do? Izuku came closer to study it. Power Loader Sensei asked everyone to make something that will limit the heroes to a certain degree. I'm making this baby to weigh them down, making it more difficult for them to perform. So this is basically Rock Lee's limit weight. Izuku held the bracelet and raised his hands up and down to measure its weight. I don't know what or who's that. Mei cackled. But she is a limit weight. A prototype, that is. Power Loader needs to approve the prototype before I can start making a more complete baby. This is an amazing idea, Hatsume-san. Izuku complimented, making Mei cackle louder. But will it work on everyone? What do you mean, nurse? Mei raised an eyebrow. This will certainly work on All Might or anyone who engages in close combat. Izuku explained as he tried to throw a punch with the bracelet in hand to demonstrate. But what about emitter quirks users like Sminta Sensei and Midnight Sensei? This only slows their movement, not their quirk output. It won't make much of a difference. So, what do you suggest? Mei pulled a chair and sat down. Have you heard of the quirk suppressant cuff? Izuku asked, which Mei nodded attentively. Instead of taking away one's quirk, you can tune it down to make it harder for them to use their quirk. For example, using their quirk will make them tired, or just simply limiting their output. I've considered the limit output. Mei hummed in thought. But if the teachers are using it for whatever they're doing, we have to manually adjust precisely how low the output is. The stamina thing sounds like a great idea, but I need to know how it feels and works for it to work. I think I can help with that. Izuku looked at Mei's eye bag. When was the last time you slept? Last Friday night. Mei rubbed her chin in thought. Today is Monday. Though, I'm the last person who can lecture you on that. Izuku chuckled as he showed his hands. Your hands, please. Mei showed her hands as Izuku gently held it and used his quirk. Mei could feel the tiredness in her slowly fade away, replacing by energy that she could only achieve after 5 cups of coffee, 4 cans of energy drink and a bottle of water. How do you feel? Izuku asked with hasting breath. Amazing. Mei grinned as she tried to move her shoulders. The shoulders and back pain are gone. That's your quirk. Izuku nodded. I can heal others at the cost of my own stamina. I can give you a sample of my blood to see how my cells changed after using my quirk. You can use it to see how you can apply that to your project. That's an amazing quirk. Mei smiled, making Izuku chuckle with slight embarrassment. How are you feeling now? Well enough to answer any questions you may have. Izuku nodded in understanding. Good. Mei grinned. You're helping me make a new baby. Our baby. Shinso. Hitoshi turned to the table at the corner to find a familiar blonde hair called out to him. Over here. Monoma. Hitoshi greeted as he set his tray on the table and sat down. Eye bags. Mei greeted him. You sure you don't want the eye mask baby? Absolutely not. Hitoshi immediately replied. Give it to the sleepy man over there instead. He pointed at Izuku, who jolted at his name being called. Tiredly rubbing his eyes, Izuku asked. Sorry. How long was I? Half an hour. Nito answered. We didn't want to wake you. No one from the hero course went to the nurse's office today. Hitoshi put a spoon in his mouth. Why are you more tired than usual? Eri had nightmares last night. Izuku yawned. We ended up playing games till morning last night. Mei pinched his elbow. Don't turn the little pipsqueak into a second you, nurse. Why not? Izuku pouted. I turned out great, didn't I? How long do we have before class starts? Hitoshi turned to Nito. Around another half an hour. Nito replied. Good. Hitoshi activated his quirk, making Izuku go blank. Sleep and wake up when Hatsume wakes you up. Izuku fell asleep at the command. Mei gently set his head on her shoulder before returning to typing on her tablet. Shuzenji-san. Nezu greeted her. Welcome, Nezu. Chio greeted back. Kuros said you called for me about an old friend. Indeed. Please, have a seat. Nezu smiled before reaching inside his table. Chio set her cane to the side and settled herself on a chair across Nezu. The chimera pulled out a file with a red, confidential, mark on the front and slid it towards Chio. The doctor opened the file, pulled out the paper and read through them. Nezu watched as Chio's expression turned from one of uninterested and annoyed into one of surprised, shock. And then a gasp escaped her mouth. Nezu. It's true, Shuzenji-san. Nezu grimly nodded. Kutaro and his family have all been confirmed dead. Only dust and ashes were found at the crime scene. Nezu waited for Chio to calm her breathing before she finally spoke up. In Inko. Quote. Let us wait for Toshinori-kun and Torino-san first.
Asterisk. A.N. Finally, some plots 0_0. Asterisk. Continuation of a section that has been mentioned in case number 3. Mei. Why did you come here in the first place, Izuku? I can't remember. Mei. If you can't remember, maybe it's not important. Izuku. I guess. Robot. He will be the first one I skin when we take over. 1 Chapter 22. Case 20. Midoriya Inko Case File Number 20. Midoriya Inko. Dear N*%. She's beautiful, just like you, but did you really have to pass on that part of the genetics to both of them? Izuku kept nervously switching glances between his book and his mentor. Chiyo didn't bat her eyes away from Izuku while sipping her tea, despite noticing his awkwardness of being studied like a hawk. Okay, yep. That's it. Izuku slammed his book shut, making Chiyo jolted from the sudden noise, almost spitting out her tea. Shuzenji-sensei, what's going on? What do you mean? Chiyo coughed out her question as she wiped the tea stain on her shirt. It's been going on for a week now. Izuku rubbed his eyes tiredly. You've been avoiding me since Tuesday. Every time I strike up a conversation, you just answer non-committedly to end it. It still would have been normal if I don't find you glaring at me when you think I'm not looking. And it's not just you. Yagi-san, Torino-san, hell on earth. Even Principal Nezu keeps inviting me to his office for tea. What is this, some kind of weird way you guys came up to ease me into being expelled? What heavens, no. Chiyo shouted out to clarify. Did someone threaten to expel you? Is it Aizawa? I always know that hobo-looking man will finally cross a line. Hold up, I'm going to call Nezu. No, he didn't. No one did. That's why this whole thing is getting confusing. Izuku assured her. Is this something you can tell me? Might as well rip this band-aid off. Chiyo sighed. She then pulled her chair closer to Izuku. Sitting face to face with him, Chiyo looked into Izuku's eyes. The viridian was a mismatch to Nana's purple. But the way they shone, those, she could never forget. Maido Izuku. Chiyo corrected. Your mother's old last name, was it Shimura? No, it's Akatani. Izuku gave a confusing answer. Shuzenji-sensei, where are you going with? Let me phrase it better. Chiyo didn't let Izuku continue. Before it was Akatani. I'm home, happy birthday. Hamiko's greeting was cut off by two loud shouts. As the light was turned on, she saw Izuku, Abara and Inko, with scone hats and a cheeky, satisfied grin as they witnessed her shell-shocked reaction. Ooh, she's lost for words. Inko giggled. It'd say it's a resounding success. Indeed, Midoriya-san. Abara nodded in agreement. I'll head inside first and prepare the table. Let me help. With that, Abara and Inko went together into the kitchen, leaving Izuku and Hamiko alone in the hallway. Hamiko watched in silence as Izuku walked closer to close the door behind her before picking the bag that she dropped on the floor. He showed her a smile as he grabbed onto her hand. So, do you like it? That's not the point. Hamiko shook herself off the surprise. You didn't say anything about this. That's the point of a surprise, Hamiko-san. Izuku grinned. It's your fault for letting your birthday slip in front of mom. She's a detective, Hamiko argued. She took my statement when I dragged you home. That's an fortunate coincidence, I suppose. Izuku shrugged. But if you're not comfortable with this, I'll tell mom to Santo. Izuku didn't get a chance to finish as Hamiko tackled him onto the ground and hugged him tight. I guess this means you like it? Izuku patted her head. Hamiko nodded. Then we're going to light a firework next year to celebrate, Izuku declared. That's against the law. What are you, the second detective of this house? Was it Shimura? Izuku blinked a few times as if that would somehow explain the question. Shimura as in Shimura Inko, daughter of Shimura Nana, All Might's mentor. Chiyo confirmed. The seventh holder of One for All. Chiyo took a deep breath. The grandmother that you never met. Inko-san. Hamiko called. Inko turned around from the sink, setting the plates back into it before turning off the tap. What's up, Hamiko-chan? Inko smiled. I don't know what to say. Hamiko avoided Inko's gentle eyes, instead looking at the table. All this second chance you gave me, despite me being a monster. Hamiko didn't get a chance to finish as two pieces of meatball flew into her mouth. She looked up at Inko in surprise. Izuku hasn't brainwashed you enough, I see. Inko joked with a soft, gentle smile. Your quirk doesn't define who you are, Hamiko. What you do, does. But Hamiko swallowed the meatballs. I attacked Izuku, your only son. And yet, you still took me in and cared so much for me. Izuku, too. Oh, believe me when I said I was about to pull your eyes out of their sockets when I saw you holding my bleeding son in front of my doorstep. Inko giggled, making Hamiko shivered in a type of fear she didn't know was possible. But Izuku was snoring, snoring. Hamiko stuttered. Right, you've never been with him long enough. Inko chuckled. Izuku sleeps a lot. Like, a lot. But he will wake up at the absolute smallest sound that is made around him. He's only sleep snoring when he's near someone he can trust. He trusted you then, so did I. Hamiko turned her head towards Izuku's room where she heard excited, although a little salty, screaming noises from Izuku and Abara. They must be playing Mario Kart again.
Inko mumbled under her breath before an imaginary light bulb popped up in her head. Himiko-chan, is there anything you want for your birthday? I focused so much on the party I actually forgot about the gift. So, tomorrow, you and me, mall all day. Anything you want. It's alright, Inko-san. Himiko waved at her in a panic. You've already done so much. I can't ask for more. I've waited so long for someone else with a normal fashion sense to go shopping with me, Himiko-chan. Inko went over to bring Himiko into a hug. Please. Himiko giggled in delight as Inko gently swayed her in the bear hug. You're saying my mother knows you? Izuku pointed at Chio. When she was a child, yes. Chio nodded. And Torino-san. Unfortunately. In principle Nezu. He's her favorite uncle. Then again, he has the physical appearance of a plushie. And her my blood grandmother is actually Shimura Nana. Chio nodded. The seventh holder of One for All, the quirk that I am a candidate for inheritance. After this revelation, I'm pretty sure it's already yours. Izuku only nodded in response. He then slowly walked over and grabbed a water bottle, looked at it for a while before looking out of the window. And then he looked back at the water bottle. And then he looked out of the window. Chio watched as Izuku repeated the actions for another 10 minutes before he finally opened the water bottle cap. So, he turned around with the opened water bottle. Did you know, when you took me in under you? No, I didn't. Chio assured him. Nezu and I didn't believe such coincidences were real enough to have happened. Hell, I didn't even believe it when I saw your mother at the hospital. Did she know? I haven't talked to her. Chio sighed sadly. But she knew I was taking you in. If she didn't talk to me then, I doubt that she would want to talk to me now. Or any of us, as a matter of fact. Izuku put the cap into his mouth and chewed on the plastic before spitting it out immediately when he realized what it was. Then how did you find out? Nezu was looking into the past users of One for All when he found out something terrible. Izuku could notice Chio slightly choking on her words before she regained her composure. Kutaro's Inko's brother, your uncle family was found dead 17 years ago. Immediately, he went straight to looking for Inko's whereabout and found out that Inko was actually my mother, Midoriya Inko. Izuku finished her sentence tiredly after gulping down the entire bottle. Holy coincidences, Batman. Listen, I know this must be hard on you, Midori Izuku. Chio put a hand on his shoulder. Take all the time you need, alright. But just know that I took you in because I recognized your talent and potential, not because of who your mother and grandmother were to me. Thank you, Shuzenji-sensei. Izuku mumbled. I suppose I need to have a talk with my mother. May I go home early today? Of course, dearie. Chio nodded. Izuku gave her an appreciative bow before grabbing his bag and heading straight for the door. Before he left, Chio called out to him. One more thing. Izuku turned around. Call me Chio if you want to. She smiled. I think we are way past last name now. Of course, Chio-sensei. Izuku smiled. Mom. The boy with dark, short hair asked, confused by his mother's sudden urgency when she pulled him and his sister towards a strange woman. Nana remained quiet, taking in another deep breath. How many times has she done that already? As she continued to walk towards the social worker. Mama. The girl asked, wincing slightly as she felt the pain of her mother's grip on her wrist. Nana bit on her lips so hard that it started to bleed. She focused on the pain instead, ignoring the screaming behind her head telling her to turn around with her children, returning to the happy, almost fairy tale-like life that she loved. The life that slipped through her fingers when she found her husband laid lifeless in an abandoned warehouse. Shimura-san. A lady in black suit next to a black limousine called out to her, snapping her out of her hesitance. It's now or never. Nana let her lifeless nod answer instead of words. Letting go of her children's hands, Nana turned around and kneeled in front of them. Their tearful, shaking, scared, confused eyes broke her more than anything or anyone ever could. She shakily reached into her pockets and pulled out 2 letters, giving each to her children. She then spreaded her arms and pulled them into a goodbye hug. The last one she would be able to give them. I'm sorry. Was all Nana could mutter as she tried to reel in her sobs. She kept her arms around them for another few minutes before letting go, fearing that any seconds longer would just make it harder. The social worker then led her children into the car with a kind and gentle tone before closing the door shut. Nana had to look away from the sight of them slamming on the glasses, calling for her. Will they? Was all she could get out of her throat. I'm sorry, Shimura-san. The social worker understood what Nana was fearing and apologized. But if what you said is true, then keeping them together will just make it more dangerous for them. We'll split them up into different families. She could only nod at that as the worker apologized once more before getting into the car. Nana's quiet sobs turned into desperate wailings as she watched the car slowly disappear from her sight. Collapsing on her knees once more, Nana continued to scream into the thin air. She screamed for her daughter, her son, and her husband. Please come back. She begged them. I'm so sorry. Mama is sorry. Please come back to me. But her wailing were not answered. Please don't leave me alone. The silence mocked her suffering. Mom. Izuku violently swung open the door. Jolted awake by the sudden noise, Inko fell off the couch from her nap. With a tired groan, she looked up in annoyance and found her son frantically went over to her. You're home early today. Inko cheered grumpily as she sleepily scratched her neck. Sorry. You, too. Izuku apologized as he helped Inko to sit back up on the couch. You usually come back right before dinner. I finished my cases early, and the captain didn't let me take on any more. Inko yawned. Why are you coming home all panicky, by the way? Oh, right. Like a bulb being lit up, Izuku stood up and looked around the living room. Himiko and Rei aren't home, right? Yeah, they're out for groceries. Inko confirmed. Izuku, you're scaring me. What's going on? I need to ask you this, and I need you to be completely honest with me, Mom. Izuku looked into Inko's eyes. Despite being weirded out by the sudden seriousness, Inko firmly nodded. Izuku took a deep breath. Do you know anyone named Shimura Nana? The cat that's already out of the bag has now officially out of the bag. How will this affect Izuku's relationship with the adults? Or better, how will the adults react when they finally meet the child that they lost decades ago? How will she react? How important Nana was to Chio? How will the vestige of 7th react to this new information? When will the next chapter come out? God, I wish I knew. Also, this chapter is named Midoriya Inko because I simply didn't know what else to name it.